Hi, I'm Pat Thatcher.
And I'm Margaret Gifford. We're from Sotheby's International Realty.
You know, spring is a beautiful time in Falmouth, but one thing I've noticed is in scant supply.
Sure is. It's bikinis on the beach.
Oh, Margaret, I'm not talking about bikinis. I'm talking about the housing inventory.
It's the lowest it's ever been.
It's very low, but it's a good time for sellers.
And a great time for buyers because the interest rates are so favorable.
All in all, it's a great time for real estate in Falmouth.
Nestled in a classic New England setting, amid 200-year-old elm trees and charming colonial homes, stately sea captains' homes, and charming Cape Cod salt boxes, Shoreway Acres is a graceful blend of Cape Cod's past and present. Shoreway Acres, proud sponsor of Falmouth Community Television.
Founder Abraham Penn taught a valuable lesson that has been part of a tradition since 1919 when he said, "I'd rather make a friend than make a sale." For more than 90 years, Puritan has been making friends as a unique family-owned company right here in Cape Cod. At Puritan Cape Cod on 199 Main Street, as well as Chatham, Mashpee, and Hyannis, you'll find the latest in men's and women's clothing, as well as ski and tennis equipment, and much more. Puritan Cape Cod, 548-0116 or PuritanCapeCod.com.
Welcome to Falmouth. If you're a visitor, this is where surf and sun meet for fun. If you're a resident, this is where you'll find the businesses and the resources necessary to fill all of your needs. If you're a business person, this can be your home. Join with other men and women who work together to make this a sustainable economy year-round. Welcome to Falmouth, Cape Cod.
Green Harbor Waterfront Lodging is nestled in a woodland setting on a picturesque ocean inlet. Green Harbor offers so much for a fun-filled yet affordable family waterfront vacation. Enjoy our private boating beach with ramp and dock, free rowboats and paddle boats, oversized heated outdoor pool and kiddie pool. You'll enjoy our attractive waterfront and beachside accommodations. So visit us online at gogreenharbor.com.
Remember, WC Communications is your printing team. We are calm and cool under pressure. You can call us at 508-563-7366 or toll free at 1-800-696-7303.
Internet services provided by Cape.com Incorporated. Established in 1994, Cape.com is the only locally owned and operated internet service provider on Cape Cod. Our specialties include e-commerce applications and design, wide area networking services, and high-speed DSL internet access throughout eastern Massachusetts. Cape.com continues to lead the way with cutting-edge applications, superior networking services, and quality customer support. For more information, visit us at www.cape.com or call us at 539-9500.
Cavosa Excavating is a family-owned and operated company specializing in the installation of Title V septic systems. Cavosa Excavating is one of the largest septic system installers on Cape Cod. Whether it's upgrading your current system or installing a whole new system, Cavosa Excavating can do the job. Cavosa Excavating, 508-563-5530.
Cavosa Disposal is proud to provide trash removal services to local businesses in Falmouth. Cavosa Disposal would like to thank its customers in Falmouth. Cavosa Disposal, 563-5070.
We've earned people's trust for over 180 years. We're proud of our heritage and the enduring relationships we've built with our clients. For us, trust is more than a word. It's the only way we do business, and it's why people choose Janney.
Leah McGuire's Irish Pub, Main Street, downtown Falmouth. What an Irish pub should be. Sláinte.
Bayside Kitchen and Bath on Main Street in Falmouth, where design and installation professionals work closely with homeowners, architects, and builders. Offering a full range of cabinetry, flooring, faucets, and green alternatives, Bayside Kitchen and Bath, returning you to beautiful spaces.
Eastman's has been Falmouth's hardware store since 1913. Today, we offer a paint department, over 30,000 fasteners in stock, and a friendly staff to assist with all your hardware needs. 508-548-0407.
Wild Harbor General Store, located in historic North Falmouth Village, providing quality goods and services for 170 years. Continuing to make history with our support of FCTV's coverage of Falmouth Town Meeting.
Carpet Barn, Carpet One Home Showcase, a local family-owned business offering all your premier carpet and flooring needs. They also feature tile and vinyl floors, area rugs, window treatments, and kitchen and bathroom cabinetry, serving you at 4 convenient locations.
Bringing you the news through the years, The Enterprise. Their subscription information line is 508-299-8379, and you can visit them on the web at www.capenews.net.
Michael A. Duffany Builders, Incorporated, 508-540-3625. Falmouth Volunteers in Public Schools, 508-548-1621. The Bank of Cape Cod, at 445 Main Street in Falmouth, bankofcapecod.com. Wood Lumber Company, at 81 Locust Street, 508-548-3154. Neighborhood Falmouth, meeting seniors' needs, 564-7543, neighborhoodfalmouth.org. Green Shuttle of Cape Cod, 866-934-6476, or gogreenshuttle.com. Foley Real Estate, at 703 Main Street. The number is 548-3415. M.R. Sars & Company, Flower Garden Nursery, at Sandwich Road in Hatchville, 548-5288. Danny's Barbershop, 508-548-6013. Eight Cousins Bookstore, at 189 Main Street in Falmouth, 548-5548. Paul's Precision Automotive Repair, at 464 Main Street, 508-548-3164. David Rogers Electrician, Residential, Commercial, Industrial, 564-7507. Murray & McDonald Insurance Services, Incorporated, at 406 Jones Road in Falmouth and 550 MacArthur Boulevard in Bourne. Falmouth Fish Market, at 157 T-Ticket Highway in Falmouth. Hamilton Tree Incorporated, 508-563-7633, or www.hamtreeandland.com. Oppenheim & Nickerson, LLP. Their law office is at 156 Locust Street, 508-548-8255. Davy Tree and Lawn at 996 East Falmouth Highway, 548-2662. Andy's Barbershop in the Falmouth Plaza. Arthur D. Calfee Insurance with 2 locations at 121 Conby Road in North Falmouth and 336 Gifford Street in Falmouth. Chapman Cole & Gleason, 508-540-4172. Hanush Jewelers, now at 352 Main Street in downtown Falmouth. The number is 548-9107. Mahoney's Garden Center at Route 28 in East Falmouth. The number is 508-548-5600. 4842. Vincent Associates Real Estate at 159 Main Street in Town Hall Square. The number is 548-6500. The Cape Cod 5 at 763 Main Street. The number is 457-5252. Cape Cod Cleaning, 508-563-7622. Steve's Pizzeria and more at 374 Main Street in the center of town. 457-9454 or 457-9636.
The special town meeting. When we dispense of the special, we will then go back to the annual town meeting. tell you. Would all town meeting members present please come forward, take your seats. Our tellers this evening in the first division will be Mr. Sellers, in the second division will be Mr. Dufresne, and in the third division will be Mr. Hampson. Chair would like to remind everyone, please take out your cell phones right now and turn them on either a silent mode or shut them off. I've been getting complaints from some town meeting members that there are cell phones going off next to them and it's distracting. So please, if you could put it on a silent mode or shut your cell phones off, that would be appreciated. I want to remind all town meeting members that attendance will be published in the Falmouth Enterprise. I want to thank FCTV, Channel 15 now, for our live broadcast. Remind all town meeting members, please identify yourself by name and precinct each time you get up to speak. Again, the tellers this evening in the first division will be Mr. Sellers, in the second division will be Mr. Dufresne, and in the third division will be Mr. Hampson. All town meeting members present, please rise for the establishment of the quorum, and the tellers will return to count. In the first division, Mr. Sellers, 47. In the third division, Mr. Hampson, 63. In the second division, Mr. Dufresne, 86. By a counted vote of 196, we have a quorum and the town meeting is back in session. Last night we had completed Article 22, and the Board of Selectmen were asking to place another motion on the floor, but we had voted to only stay to finish that main motion. And so at this time I'll recognize the Chairman of the Board of Selectmen. Mr. Latimer. Yep, microphone. Microphone.
Latimer, Precinct 2, sorry. We had an article published in the warrant. We voted on it. Okay. The only motion that would be in order at this point would be a motion to reconsider the Article 22, and that would have to be based on new information. I would object to any other type of motion. Thank you.
Okay. You're incorrect, Mr. Latimer. You can have multiple main motions on an article. The motion to reconsider is necessary to open up the same motion on an article, or if you have gone on to another main motion, another article, to go back to the original article. You may remember that we've done this before when the Community Preservation Committee was in its genesis and they hadn't established the process of putting articles in the warrant for the reserve fund. And when town meeting had voted a project down, the motion was then in order, a main motion to take that amount of money and to put it into a reserve fund. So those were two main motions on one article because we hadn't gone on to another order of business. And so I will read it out of the book because I know you're not going to believe me. While defeating the negative cannot establish the affirmative, defeating an affirmative motion can, as a practical matter, frequently be taken as a sufficient negative. Theoretically, anyone may make another and different affirmative motion, and this is sometimes done, but more often the declaration of the vote on the affirmative motion is allowed by silence, and the moderator may properly proceed to the next article.
I would perhaps agree with that if the criteria for passing each article were the same. So if we want to say another motion can be brought forward that will require a 2/3 majority I will accede to that. Otherwise, I will say this is an end run against our bylaws and against the procedure stated in state law, and I will object. Thank you.
Can you quote what state law you think I'm violating, Richard? You're a lawyer. Tell me what state law I'm violating.
The state law that says when we're going to ask the voters to vote money under Proposition 2.5, we have to first have a two-thirds majority here. That's the state law that I'm saying we would be violating. It would be an end run, and I would consider challenging that. Thank you.
Proposition 2.5 requires a two-thirds vote for the legislative authority of a municipality to authorize and appropriate the borrowing. And in many communities in the Commonwealth, if you read the newspaper in Mashpee, for example, or the town of Bourne, you'll notice that the selectmen put questions on the ballot without any vote of their town meeting, and then they come back to the town meeting to get the two-thirds vote. Matter of fact, it just happened in Bourne with the DPW project, which they went to the ballot, and then they were expecting to come back to town meeting for their two-thirds vote. So that is not a violation of Proposition 2.5.
What does our bylaw say about that?
There is no bylaw in the town. We are silent on the procedure by precedent or by town meeting time, which I just read for you.
I will defer to Mr. Dufresne.
Mr. Dufresne?
Fellow town meeting members, rather than start this off with this dialogue, maybe we should have saluted the flag and said a prayer.
Thank you, Andy. I did not have my checklist from the first night, and I did miss the opening procedures. So would all members and guests present please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you, Andy. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, I'll recognize Mr. Nitisitko for our invocation.
Lord, when it comes to meeting and communicating with each other, help us to be good listeners. Help us to be open-minded, putting aside our own agendas. Help us to be honest without being insensitive. Help us to be respectful without being too formal or artificial. Help us to question and to challenge without being harsh. Help us to be aware that this is just one moment, just one meeting. And lastly, help us to remember that you too are always meeting and communicating with us. Amen.
Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Andy.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $100,000 from certified free cash for the purpose of soliciting and evaluating proposals to dismantle Win 1 and Win 2 and any other costs relative hereto to be expended under the jurisdiction of the town manager, and further to support the Board of Selectmen's placement of questions on the ballot seeking the vote of town to exclude the amounts required to repay any borrowing authorized for the purpose of dismantling and removing wind turbines, in repaying grants received on account of such wind turbines from the limits of Chapter 59, Section 21C of the General Laws, also known as Proposition 2.5, and pursuant to the passage of special legislation contained in this motion. And further, the Board of Selectmen is authorized to submit a petition to the legislature for enactment of special legislation as follows, and that the Board of Selectmen is authorized to accept recommended changes by legislature, council, or bond council to further evaluate the purpose of this article. An act pertaining to the issuance of bonds or notes by the town of Falmouth, be it enacted the Senate and the House of Representatives in the General Court assembled, and by the authority of the same as follows. Section 1, notwithstanding the provisions of any general or special law to the contrary, the town of Falmouth is authorized to borrow from time to time such sums of money as may be necessary to pay costs of decommissioning, dismantling and removing of the wind turbines, repaying grants received on account of such wind turbines, refinancing outstanding debt related to such wind turbines without regard to the present value savings required of Section 21A of Chapter 44, and for the payment of any and all other costs incidental and related thereto. Bonds and notes issued under this Act shall be issued for a term not to exceed 20 years from their date or dates of issue, and the maturity of any bonds issued by the town under this Act either shall be arranged so that for each issue, the annual combined payments of principal and interest payable in each year, commencing with the fiscal year in which principal payment is required, shall be nearly equal as practicable in the opinion of the municipal treasurer and collector of taxes, shall be arranged in accordance with the schedule providing for more rapid amortization of principal. Bonds or notes issued under this Act shall be outside the limits of the indebtedness prescribed in Section 10 of Chapter 44, and except as otherwise provided in this Act shall be subject to the applicable provisions of said Chapter 44. Section 2, this Act shall take effect upon the passage. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, by way of explanation. Mr. Rhodes?
Scobah Roads, Precinct 8. I heard your explanation as to why you were allowing this to be read, but it's confusing simply because last night we had an Article 22. We discussed it for an hour and a half, and it was killed. You didn't get the 2/3 positive vote on it. I'm concerned that this sets a precedent that I haven't seen in town meeting in Falmouth in over 40 years. My guess...
Mr. Rhodes, I explained the precedent had been set at the genesis of the Community Preservation Committee when I invoked that rule and allowed a second main motion on the floor. So I've done this before. I actually have done it twice. I can't remember what the other one was. I was going back.
I must have been absent that night.
It's been 15 years since I started this. I was trying to find the other time, but we've done this twice before.
I think twice is enough.
Then you're going to vote no on the motion.
I think that this body should be asked if they're going to allow it to occur. And they
I'm
need
not
a
going to ask the
2/3
body to decide whether or not a legal rule and a procedure that we have had used in this town meeting multiple times and is part of the standard procedure for town meetings in New England is a worthwhile procedure. If you want to change the procedures that we use at town meeting, you're more than welcome to petition to a future town meeting and have an article and have a motion or come to our Rules Committee meeting. But I'm not going to allow the body to change procedure in the middle of a town meeting. That would not be consistent with precedent.
But you just changed the rules by allowing this to occur.
I did not change the rules. Again, we used this with the Community Preservation Committee at its genesis. There was one other time that we've used it, and I read the section from town meeting time that says that it is in order unless you've moved on to another article. Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, if I can explain this process. What we put forward this evening would allow the voters to vote and see whether or not they wanted to exclude from Proposition 2.5 for the debt to dismantle and decommission the wind turbines. Also included in this motion is $100,000 under the jurisdiction of the town manager to fund an RFP and legal representation to go forward with a special act in the legislature. No borrowing will occur, and I repeat this, no borrowing will occur unless, of course, we get a vote of the voters, and then we would come back to town meeting, and it would be necessary at that time to get a 2/3 majority vote from town meeting. Now, a lot of folks had expressed some concerns last night still about the idea and the ideal that these turbines, if we take them down, have some value. In this period of time, we would be able to set out the RFP, find out what the actual cost is to dismantle the turbines, to take the turbines down, and whether or not anyone would want to buy them, number one. Number two, we would have the opportunity in the authorization, again with the voters' authority, to go to this legislature and see if in fact the legislature were to approve this act and allow the town to move forward. It will come back to town meeting, the ultimate borrowing. You will have a better, firmer, and harder number to be able to make a decision. And incidentally, it would never come back to town meeting unless, of course, the voters approve this. If we're talking tonight about eliminating an opportunity for the voters to have their say, whether it's up or down, I think that's ludicrous. This body is going to have an opportunity to make a decision on whether to incur the debt. And that may come in the fall, which we would hope. That may come in the spring next year. We don't know how long this will take. But in fact, it will come back to this body. Nobody is trying to do an end run. This was one of the alternatives the Board of Selectmen had discussed. But as prudent as this town meeting is, last night you didn't pass give the Board of Selectmen or the voters the authority to borrow with the 2/3 vote. We will come back. Only come back if it passes at the ballot, and only come back if it passes the legislature and we're able to go with the special act of legislation. We will also then have firmer numbers for you in what this will actually cost. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Ms. Lichtenstein, and then Mr. Scherer.
Point of clarification. If this passes tonight with a simple majority, it goes to the ballot. The voters of Falmouth vote yes or no. If they vote yes, it goes back to town meeting in the fall. Will it again go to the voters, or this is where, usually town meeting votes to put something as a Proposition 2.5 override. So that's my question. In other words, is it going to go back to the ballot again?
No, it won't go back to the ballot. And town meeting is under the impression that it votes to put something on the ballot, but it's not. You are voting to authorize the borrowing subject to the question. The sole authority to put a ballot question on the ballot is the Board of Selectmen. So we have had a practice of doing one before the other, so there's been the impression, and I try to do this every time we do the orientation for town meeting members, to take away the myth that we're actually placing something on the ballot. We are authorizing the borrowing, and then we're requesting the Board of Selectmen to duly place it on the ballot.
Okay, so a positive vote on this motion would send it to the voters of Falmouth, and they would make a decision. If we vote no, it doesn't go to the ballot?
Well, the selectmen have that authority to put it onto the ballot or not.
Okay, that was what I want to know. Thank you very much.
And I think the chairman made the intention of the Board of Selectmen clear, but they still have the final authority whether or not to put it on the ballot. Mr. Scherer? Mr. Stetcher, you're on my list.
Well, good evening. Dan Scherer, Precinct 6. I usually speak a lot at town meeting. This is the first time I've stood up tonight, and I'm disgusted. I hope everybody here is going to look out for that train, because here it comes. We're being railroaded. We're being pushed around. We're getting something that we don't understand. Last night, we did the same thing. You handed something out at the door. I didn't have a chance to read it, and I doubt many people here did. And I'll ask anybody here, do they understand fully what Mr. Murphy said? Can they repeat it? That's what a town meeting is supposed to do. You're supposed to come here with knowledge, and we don't have it when we get something at the door at the last minute, and it goes rah-rah. Please, vote this down. They're going to put it on the ballot. We'll find out what the taxpayers of Falmouth want, but we don't have to put down what, where, and you're going to get 10 cents and you're going to get 50 cents and this is going to go there. The selectmen before this did not do their homework. They should have known who might be interested. I know one company that does windmills that is interested after the verdict comes out. But I don't think they are, or maybe they can tell me what companies they've gone to who do, or what windmills who might buy it or might be interested in it. Let's find out what the whole population of Falmouth wants now on the vote ballot that they will put on without passing this. Thank you. Vote no, please.
Mr. Netto. And then Ms. Shepherd.
Danny, this yours? Joe Netto, Precinct 9. Dear fellow town meeting members, I'm standing in front of you to address you about the process that is being unveiled tonight. I have no problem with the moderator's decision to put this in front of us. And as he said, we can take this up at a Rules Committee meeting. My problem is the process of the dialogue, as Mr. Shearer just said before me. As a town meeting member, being given the facts so that I can form an intelligent opinion, given the facts to make an intelligent decision. As I walked through the door tonight, I was handed the purple piece of paper. This purple piece of paper has a potential of $12 to $15 million, and even more according to some people. Back up. Last Wednesday, the state had a meeting. The selectmen at our precinct meetings told us they will finalize this before town meeting. They got to wait for the state. Wednesday, the state had their meeting. Thursday morning, you put your computer on, and you got the yellow piece of paper. They made sure you got last night's motion with enough time to digest it. Well, I put the computer on this morning, and nothing came up. And finally, about noontime, still nothing was there. So I drove downtown, and I saw the clerk to see if there was a motion there. And the clerk gave me the motion. And I said, how long have you had this? And he told me, Monday night. Now, was that the final one that was passed? Why weren't we given this after it was discussed? This no longer, to me, has relevancy to the windmill question, but how we as town meeting are going to operate. If you look at the facts on the question, as it's been said numerous times now, first, we have to go to the voters. We have to go to the polls. Well, why don't we just do that? That is entirely up to the Board of Selectmen. The moderator just told you. You're an advisory group as far as that's concerned. They can do anything they want. Look at the second half of the motion. They have to petition the legislature. So if this was a business, wouldn't step one be, let's go to the voters? So I ask you to defeat this motion. They told us it was going to the voters, and let the voters have their say on this question, and then that'll give us the leadership and the direction of which way we're supposed to go. I would wholeheartedly concur with Mr. Shearer that we vote this article down. There are certain things that are going to happen anyhow. Why would we want to appropriate $100,000 if the voters turn this down? That's common sense. And shouldn't common sense here prevail? Forget the emotional issue. To me, this is core to what we're here for. The relationship between this body, town meeting, and the Board of Selectmen. Thank you. I'd appreciate your support.
The gentleman in the aisle, I have you on the list if you want to take a seat, because this is a big list. You're on the list, though. Mr. Murphy, you want to respond, and then Ms. Shepherd has the floor.
I do want to respond, and what I want to respond by is saying the Board of Selectmen spoke about this motion last Thursday night. We didn't take action on this motion until last evening before town meeting. We had talked about it in an open public meeting. That open public meeting happened to be with the Finance Committee, so we spoke about it, but we made a decision to move forward with the article we moved forward with last night. Last night before town meeting, the board took this up as an alternate if, in fact, this our original article did not work, did not pass the muster of a 2/3 vote. Now, what is the importance of the $100,000? The importance of the $100,000 is, and incidentally, that $100,000 will not be spent until it passes the voters. In last night's motion, that $100,000 was in the motion, but in that $3.5 million, because we need legal assistance to be able to put out the RFP. We need legal assistance in bond counsel to help us move through the special act of the legislature. If we merely went to the ballot, we would have no funds to be able to do any of these things. We would have to wait until next fall to come back to this body. And you know what? There are a lot of neighbors there and a lot of folks in this community who, if they decide at the ballot, they're sending a clear message to this board, to this community, and to each and every one of you that they want to see a change. And only after they go to the ballot. So I think it's fair to say that if they vote at the ballot, that you're going to give this board some funds to be able to move through the process. And yes, we will come back to town meeting to get the authorization to borrow. But by merely just going to the ballot, we would sit there in limbo, and as Mr. Dick had to say last night, we would be kicking the can down the road. We wouldn't have the opportunity to move forward with anything. So just give us the opportunity if the voters say yes. The opportunity is to be able to do some research. We heard loud and clear from you last night that you wanted a firm number. We heard loud and clear that people said these things are worth some money. Well, we don't know that. I don't know any used wind turbine salesman I can call. And incidentally, Mr. Shearer brings up a good point. You know, you could call these people. This is government. You don't call people and ask them, hey, what do you think, Joe? What can you give me for this? You have to put out an RFP. That's the bottom line. That's part of what government is an open public process. So we need some tools to be able to do it. That's what this article gives us, is that tools, that funds. No funds will be expended unless, of course, the voters vote for this. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Shepherd. Mr. Zweig, I've got you on the list if you want to have a seat.
Susan Shepherd, Precinct 1. Through you, Mr. Moderator, I have essentially two questions. One is, when I read this article, it doesn't say that there will be a ballot question on this year's ballot. I want to know if there will be a ballot question this May, and I also want to know what that question will be if this body votes the motion up, or what it will be if it votes the motion down. But first, will there be a ballot question this May?
Mr. Chairman.
For me to act without the entire board to tell you what the actual language would be inappropriate. But the board has had all intentions of moving forward after town meeting to put a ballot question on. What this article allows in the ballot question is not a referendum, but it allows us for a ballot question that would ask people to exclude from Proposition 2.5. So they would actually be saying, we're going to vote to pay up to the amount we had last night. That's if they would put on the ballot question. The ballot language is very vague, and it would be to exclude from Proposition 2.5.
And it would give the amounts that you gave last night.
They would be that amounts, not to exceed that amount. That's
And
correct.
that will be on this May ballot.
Again, the board has not voted a ballot, but I would assume all along we've discussed that.
I don't feel like you answered my question.
I can't act on behalf of the entire board. I'm only one of 5, and the charter does not allow me to do so. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Donahue. Right here in the center.
Through you, Mr. Moderator, fellow town meeting members, I feel like I'm in a used car or a new car dealership, and the salesman, being the selectman, have taken my proposal that we had last night, and they took it to their manager. And now they came back again, and instead of giving us a better deal, it's exactly the same terminology, all the same stuff, but hey guys, it's going to cost you $100,000 more. $100,000 more. If you think that they couldn't, and I'd like to ask, through you, Mr. Moderator, how many more motions do you have for us, guys? And why couldn't you have had a meeting and decided on what the terminology of the ballot would be for the proposition for an override on this? You could have done all that. You could have done your homework, but you're trying to be, in my opinion, pig-headed about this, because you made a decision. There were Mr. Murphy, Mr. Putnam were on that board that okayed this stuff. And so your reputation is at stake if this thing goes down. Let's come back in the fall. Let's get a committee going to work on this problem with these people and really come up with a solution. I'm voting against it, and I hope everyone else does too.
Mr. Stetcher, and then Mr. Clark, Dr. Clark.
Precinct 3.
You're on the list.
First of all, I don't think it's appropriate to ask us to give you $100,000 after we voted this same idea down. I'm all for going to the ballot for the public. I voted yes to take the things down in the first place, but I don't think this is the way to do it. Let's go get the permission from the public, and then we can work from there. You're assuming this $100,000 is going to be used because the public is going to say okay, but we don't know. And then what? I think we should just proceed with the ballot in May and then just go from there. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Clark.
I would start by saying that I don't think we make progress tonight by castigating the selectmen any more than we make progress by castigating neighbors or others. The point here is that the selectmen are trying to move the process ahead in some way. Personally, I would have been in favor of this if the selectmen were asking us for $300,000 so that they could put a panel of experts together to study the plausibility of the other WTOP option. What's disappointing to me here is that this is still full bore on one of the options. And I would raise the issue that when the selectmen and others talk about the desire to bring the town together or talk about the desire to build trust in future money issues, the problem is that the town has to be convinced that there's been due diligence done. I think a lot of people here, including me, would say we might not be in this problem if due diligence were done more carefully at the beginning of this whole thing. Given the problem we have now, there was a wonderful effort by the WTOP to list 3 options. Only one of them has been investigated. And that's because the selectmen did a great job of being behind that process, but when the options came forward, I believe, they didn't look at all the options equally. They looked at one option. And this is what they're still desiring to do. There needs to be more information, but it's all about one option. I think, as a voter, that I need to be convinced that the other options are more expensive or don't work or are legally impossible or they're unethical or they're, and my problem is there just hasn't been enough investigation. And Mr. Putnam stepped to the floor to give us a piece of information, but that was certainly no study of the plausibility, the complexity, the legal and real estate complexities of the other option. And I'm sure he would agree. So I don't want to slap hands. I think what we need to do, though, is understand that we do need to do more study. In my look at the WTOP report, I would tell you there's a strong need to have manned, credible sound studies done in more places for more time in more conditions. There was a lot of uncertainty in that report about whether there were exceedances or not, or how often, or where, or in what situations. Why aren't we getting some information about that? Because the decision has been made, evidently, that the option to bring forward is to take the turbines down. The WTOP certainly was uncertain about the future value of electricity created by the turbines, and some questions were raised last night about that. We ought to be looking at that to know what that side of the option is, too. And I'm sorry, because I think we could be moving forward as a town to get this breadth of information that I think would be needed to say to the voters, look, folks, we looked at this option and we looked at this option, and this one's going to cost half again as much, and it has ethical issues and legal issues that you don't want to touch as a town. Whereas this one, as we've been told, appears to be the cleaner and more concrete. But I don't know about this one over here. That's my problem, and this doesn't do anything to help me get there. So I think if you want to build the credibility of town recommendations on money, you do the kinds of things that the WCMP, had the study that they've done. You do the things that the WTOP has done, but then you carry it further to say, and here's what the costs of those options are. And I think until we do those due diligence on a couple of options and say to us, you could choose this one and here are the costs and benefits, or you could choose this one and here are the costs and benefits, but we're not getting that. We're saying, choose this one, 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 as far as I'm concerned. And that's, and I think that comes from a desire to get it done. And I understand that desire. But I think if we rush to get it done too fast, it leaves people not sure about the options. Thank you.
Mr. Schmidt. Mr. Schmidt. Let's go, folks. Mr. Schmidt. Mr. Jones. You have a point of order, Mr. Jones? You're...
Exactly information to Dr. Clark. Last night we went through the debate.
Okay, so you are ready to answer a question that was posed?
I've been ready to for 2 nights, but...
Okay, well, you were on my list last night, and they moved the question. You don't have to get snippy. I'll show you the list, like I showed a few people after town meeting. You were asked to be put on the list, so they told me you wanted to make an amendment. And you are a member just like anyone else, and I put you on my list. But if you're answering a question, I will recognize you. Mr. Schmidt, I'm going to recognize Mr. Jones to answer some of the questions, and then Mr. Schmidt, you'll have the floor next, okay?
The Board of Selectmen didn't just consider one option. The Board of Selectmen has made a recommendation for one option. The Board of Selectmen has been involved in the WTO process for a long time. Mrs. Flynn and I made it to almost every single meeting. The 5 members of the board read the report very carefully, had a meeting, open meeting at the library to hear the report, received input from as many people as wanted to speak, and considered these options very, very carefully. This is not a decision, a recommendation that we made lightly. We received many, many emails from all the people in town. And to suggest that we only looked at one option, I'm stunned by. The idea that we haven't presented the information on the other options was really more of a fact of how the debate went last night. We heard pro-argument after pro-argument after pro-argument last night, enough that the moderator, I think in good choice, polled people to find out, was there any anti-argument? At that point, we still had 7 that had pro-arguments put forward who were put aside. We may have had many other pro-arguments out there, including the information I was going to give about the costs of some of the other options. We have that information. We did not present it last night because we were not given the opportunity to. It is not the issue tonight. I'm happy to give...
Mr. Jones, I just want to make this procedurally clear to the Board of Selectmen. All 5 of you, listen up. When you put a motion on the floor of town meeting, you have the opportunity to make the presentation. If you want to keep your little slips of paper in your bag under the table up here, that's your choice. You had the floor, all 5 of you, through your chair, to put a main motion to make any presentation you wanted. Mr. Jones, I even recognized you, and you spoke. Matter of fact, I could tell you that you spoke at 10 o'clock was when you spoke, and you had the opportunity to make any other presentation when you had the floor as well. So in the future, before the Board of Selectmen say that you did not have the opportunity to make a presentation, when you place a main motion on the floor, I expect you to make your presentation at the beginning of the article. Mr. Jones, you have the floor.
Last evening, I was asked some specific questions, at which point I answered them. The question about the costs of some of the other options was a different presentation than our positive reasons for supporting the recommendation we have supported. The Board of Selectmen feels that the removal of the turbines will provide a solution to pulling this town back together that is clear, understandable, and quick. And this is the reason why we have supported it. Many people have asked, why don't we just purchase the houses of those people who are affected? I have some real concerns about that idea. They'll begin with asking people who have lived in their houses and built their houses and suggest they need to move. I find that a cost that's different than money. The recommendation we've made has a financial cost that I can understand. Some of the other costs I find harder to understand. So one, asking people to move, or potentially saying they have to move. Then we do get into some of the unknown financial costs. If we're going to buy houses, that costs money. If we're going to sell houses, that costs money. If we're going to take houses by eminent domain, that's going to cost us some money. If we're going to have to take some time to do this and decide how do we run the turbines at that point, we are not going to be running them at the full operation to make the $8 million. Many of the predictions right now that we have say that the turbines can bring in about $1.2 million every year. $120,000 of that is to go to the wastewater treatment plant. The state has made it clear that that's the purpose of the project, is to create electricity. Then we have to spend $600,000 to $700,000, and there's argument as to exactly what that number is, for operating, maintenance, debt obligations, contract services. That leaves us about $300,000 to $400,000 to buy unknown number of houses. I don't understand where the finances quite work. We may end up with $8 million over 18 years, but we need the money now to buy the houses now. So then we're also going to have to start to find some mortgages to be able to buy these houses. These are the kinds of the points of research that the WTOP and the Board of Selectmen did do, did consider, did read in the report before we made our recommendation and our choice of an option that we are recommending to you and to the town residents. I would like to make an amendment because I do understand Mr. Neto's point. I think it's an excellent one. And I would love to add the amendment that the $100,000 not be expended until the town vote supports or passes the ballot question. So the language would be
to add that the appropriate the sum of $100,000 from certified free cash contingent on vote of the town?
to be expended under the jurisdiction of the town manager and not to be expended unless the ballot question is passed affirmatively by the town.
Okay. I think it's pretty straightforward, but if we can just, if somebody's got the ability to just write it up so the clerk can have it to insert it in writing. So the question, we're going to start a new list. The question is opening up on the amendment, which is making the appropriation contingent on the ballot vote. Discussion? Yep, Dr. Clark.
One of the questions that's been raised that might be clarified is whether a ballot question, were it to come, can have the actual number in it. And my experience with Proposition 2.5 overrides is there's very strict language, and there will be no number in the actual ballot question. I've never seen one. Yeah.
We'll
and
have
so
Mr. Duffy
can we be
answer.
clear about that?
Yep. Mr. Duffy, can you talk about the standard form of a Proposition 2.5 question?
The selectmen are considering putting on the ballot a question which is called the debt exclusion. In a debt exclusion, the question is, you must conform to state law, and the form of the question is prescribed in the statute. You don't mention the amount of money, you simply refer to all of the money. So you are going to be asked, or at the discretion of the selectmen, whether or not you will exclude all of the money necessary to pay the notes, to repay the notes from Proposition 2.5. This is the question that we have all of the time. The amount is never in the question. The amount only appears in an override.
And a capital exclusion. Mr. Neto?
Joe Neto, Precinct 9. I wholeheartedly concur with Selectman Jones, and I thank him for the amendment, and I will wholeheartedly support it. Because now we're starting to put things in perspective in the correct order. And number one, you have to go and get the authority to do this, to move forward by the population of the town that shows up to vote that day. That's what I said last night, and that's what I'm going to say now in support of this. Also, the amendment, if I'm not mistaken, answers Mrs. Shepherd's question, because she didn't feel she got a correct answer, because Mr. Murphy has to have a meeting of the board. But if you pass this amendment and now pass the article, so I've come 180 degrees in that regard because something's been added, it forces, literally, stop and think about it. See, it's funny when you get the facts and you get them with enough time and have time to digest them. And that was my criticism when I went to the podium, that you never gave us this information. We should have had this information first thing this morning. Because one thing we can do when we discuss things is come up with answers that make sense. And I think we're now finally starting to move in the right direction. Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Mr. Zweig, and then the other Mr. Neto. Yep, Mr. Latimer? Yes, yep, we're talking about the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Ron Zweig, Precinct 1. I'm a bit puzzled by this, and even by the amendment in particular. It says in this pink sheet, or this purple sheet, that they're going to appropriate the sum of $100,000 from certified free cash for the purpose of soliciting and evaluating proposals to dismantle Wind 1 and Wind 2. If you go to the WTOP report, we have a $14 million overall estimate of the costs to do this. If you go to the WTOP report and you read section 4.8, turbine resale data, the Weston and Sampson report had estimated that resale value of the turbines without a manufacturer's warranty at $300,000 to $600,000, which did not include the dismantling and transportation costs. Alternatively, if the turbines, copper, steel, and spare parts were harvested for resale, the estimated approximately $182,000 could be raised. So of a $14 million program, we've spent $380,000 or $390,000 for the WTOP through a grant from the Clean Energy Center. We have this range of numbers. Out of $14 million, why would we spend another $100,000 now to basically come up with probably almost the same estimate? It may be, and then it has to be put out to bid. So it seems to me that there's a real question about committing $100,000 for something that has more or less been done, or we have a good idea relative to $14 million. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Zweig, and that's exactly what we would do. We would put it out to bid, meaning an RFP, if in fact the voters vote for it. So I agree with you. We would not take a number out of the WTOP. We would actually set up an RFP with legal counsel helping us to do that, and we would actually get a firm number. Put it out to bid. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Netto.
Mike Netto, Precinct 9. Mr. Moderator, strictly a procedural question here. Let's say that this amendment passes and the motion fails, or the amendment does not pass and the motion then fails. Does Chairman Murphy have an option to throw a third card on the table? Can he throw a third motion, or perhaps if that one fails, a fourth motion as well?
Procedurally, he has the opportunity. I don't know if he's got another paper in his bag. Mr. Murphy?
No, I'm not asking. I just said strictly procedural.
Strictly procedural,
okay.
Until we move to the next article.
Okay. Well, my point is this. Mr. Donahue feels like he was, or that he's in the process of haggling for a used car. I feel like I'm at a poker game, and I'm horrible at cards. So at this point, I've lost my trust in the 5 selectmen on the stage. And I'm wondering if it's possible to go ahead and put on the ballot without a debt exclusion question, but somehow verse a question on the ballot for everybody in this town and ask them what they want to do. Is it possible to put option A, take the turbines down? Option B, buy the houses. Selectman Putnam last night spoke about insulating the houses for, I'm sure, for sound attenuation. But is it possible to just put a question on the ballot and let the townspeople speak through their vote?
The Board of Selectmen is in charge of the ballot. We could put anything on the ballot. I don't think that that would be productive because, as we discussed last night, our job is to try to make a decision how to move forward. Are we going to set up a referendum? This got 10%, that got 20%, that one got 30%. As we said last night, this either gets voted up or voted down. If it gets voted down, the Board of Selectmen in this community needs to go back to work to find another solution to the problem. This is the best solution that this leadership, the Finance Committee, have thought through and moved forward with. I realize that a lot of folks here tonight have not followed the process. As you heard some folks who were on the WTOP, there were 24 meetings over a period of 28, 30 weeks that those folks worked at it. We had board members of the Board of Selectmen at those meetings. And even before that, members of the Board of Selectmen have looked at this issue for a long period of time. Folks, I can tell you that my opinion today was drastically changed by the WTOP process. the public hearing process than it was before we started all those. And
Mr. Latimer? Okay. Okay.
I'm just answering this question that he asked me, Mr. Mayor.
So, no, but the question was whether or not they could place the thing on the ballot, and the selectmen control the ballot. So, further discussion on just the amendment portion. Mr. Donahue?
Mr. Moderator, I feel that this amendment is totally deceiving. And the information that Mr. Duffy has given us, that the selectmen want to put something on the ballot, either yay or nay, but don't want to tell the general public that Mr. Murphy just said doesn't pay attention to this stuff, because we don't pay attention, right, folks? And you're going to say, do you want to tear down or do you want to let them still run? But you're not going to tell them it's $14,176,000 it's going to cost them, plus what we lost, the $7 or $8 million that's in dispute that we'd lost from revenue or would possibly revenue from the thing. You know, it seems to me that this just isn't fair. If you're going to ask me to vote, if you're going to ask me my opinion on something, and that's what I think a vote like this is, then I want all the information in front of me. I don't want you to just, give me half or none and ask me to make, yes, I want to do this, or no, I don't want to do that. I'm still voting no. As far as I'm concerned, I'm voting no on the amendment as well. Thank you.
Okay, let's really tighten up our conversation here around this amendment, because I've got a really long list to go back to on the main motion. So let's really tighten up whether or not you want to add Mr. Jones's language to make the $100,000 appropriation contingent upon it, okay? Ms. Funfar? Then Mr. Patamas.
I agree, this isn't fair. For the neighbors, it's already been over 3 years. Monday night, Diane Funfar, Precinct 6. Monday night, you town meeting members voted unanimously for Article 7, which guarantees that none of you will ever have an industrial wind turbine in your neighborhood. My question is, how is
Ms.
it...
Ms. Funfar, we're on the amendment. I can add you to the list on the main motion, but do you have comments related to making the $100,000 contingent on the ballot vote? That's all we're going to discuss until we dispense, but I'll put you on the list, Ms. Funfar. Okay, Mr. Patamas, on the amendment.
I think this is pretty simple. We have to vote the $100,000 because it's a clarifying procedure. We asked for the clarifying procedure. I trusted that the selectmen were going to do exactly what the amendment said, was they weren't going to spend $100,000 if the town decided against taking them down. We talked about social issues and civility, but tonight we're tearing apart our leadership, we're tearing apart ourselves, and the one reason we're doing it is 3/4 of my fellow citizen legislators have not done their homework, they have not listened to the selectmen meetings, and they have not followed the WOPT process. I think we have to vote yes on this because this is due process. The state legislature doesn't allow us to put certain things in the ballot that maybe I would like to see on the ballot, but we're a nation of laws. I think we have to vote yes. We will never study our way out of this problem. And I'll address Mr. Clark's issue. But we can get some information. I think we need to vote yes on this ballot question.
Okay, on the amendment, Mr. Allegro? Okay. There was a gentleman in the way far back. You're on the other one, okay. Ms. Lowell, on the amendment? You're all set. Okay, any further discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, the question will then come on the amendment to add the language that they don't spend the $100,000 from certified free cash until after a positive vote on the ballot. All those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it by a majority, and we're back to the list of the main motion as amended. Next on my list was Mr. Schmidt. Did you? Yeah, you were on the. Yep. Mr. Rhodes, you got a point of order?
Scoville Roads, Precinct 8. I hope I'm not out of order. We've debated for an hour and a half last night. We've debated an hour tonight on this same article. I move the question.
Okay. A point of order to take you out of turn of a speaking list doesn't allow you to move the question. So I could add you on my list. And after about 18 people on this list, you can move the question. So, Mr. Schmidt?
Yes, Edward Schmidt, Precinct 8. I have to take a deep breath when I stand here. I ask you all to do the same, because I'm going to be talking about something and putting something out here which you haven't heard before, something totally new and different. I think I build a little bit around what Peter Clark had to say. It was a perfect setup, if you will. Well, he's much more eloquent than I will be. But Peter was trying to bring down the tone, I guess, and calm everybody down a little bit, try and look for some areas where we can find some kind of agreement and maybe consensus. Because what I want to do is talk about consensus. There was a consensus building institute that led the whole WTOP process. And I think when it was done, the young lady, actually made the statement that she didn't think from the beginning it was going to be possible. But I think maybe it is possible. I'd like to share an idea with you. I think there's a way of achieving consensus that'll make all the town meeting members happy, and importantly, something where we might be able to get the agreement from the good folks on, particularly those on Blacksmith Shop Road, who have been impacted by this situation. Some of those folks know that I've been sending them emails back and forth trying to look for resolutions. Well, at 4 o'clock this afternoon, I had my aha moment, and my blood pressure shot up, and it's still up there. As I started looking at the WTOP report, Section 4.7 has to do with turbine relocation data. There are a couple of key elements. It's only a one-page summary. It was the whole WTOP report. It was the summary report that I'm talking about. So one page was devoted to treating the idea of relocating the turbines. And the net of all the discussions, I guess, by that committee, that met for 24 meetings, was a real focus on moving the turbines to the Crane Wildlife Center. And no other locations were mentioned. They did set some criteria. One was a 2,500-foot setback, which is twice the setback, I believe, of the current position of Win 1 relative to the closest homes on Blacksmith Shop Road, and I confirmed that this afternoon looking at Google Earth that I figured out how to use. I guess to get to the real point real quickly, when I went on Google Earth, you can put a little spot on a particular location. I put the spot right on the location of the Win 1 wind turbine. And you can do a little function on Google Earth which says it's about drawing a line, drawing a map and whatnot. Well, I made the operation, and I drew a line from that turbine, and I drew it, as it turned out, it was 51 degrees by the compass. That's a little bit east of northeast. It goes from where Wynwood is off in the direction of the Social Security Center. The Social Security Center actually seems to be quite a good distance away from Win 1. But what I found on that 51-degree movement from the current location of Win 1 is you can go an additional 440 yards, 1/4 of a mile, north and east. That's moving away from Blacksmith Shop Road. And what the spot you find when you get there is the northeast corner of one of those three settling ponds of the waste management treatment itself. So I'm saying you can move these turbines. I'm just addressing Win 1. You can move it 440 yards, not feet. And you're still on town property there where the treatment center is located. Now, the Weston and Sampson did an analysis of the cost of moving turbines. I don't know what they based it on. Maybe it was based upon moving the turbines to the Crane Wildlife Center, which incidentally doesn't work out because of FAA requirements and people on the house living nearby, people on the base living nearby. But Weston and Sampson indicated that they could be moved for $4.4 million. And it says here in the WTO report that, quote, WTOP have generally agreed with this as a ballpark amount. And it also indicates here the WTOP report on moving turbines, the criteria was a 2,500-foot setback. And what I'm saying now is this is easily exceeds that 2,500-foot setback. It gives the turbines, it gives the people on Blacksmith Shop Road an extra 1/4 of a mile, 440 yards, separation from the turbine. And I have an idea that should pretty much take care of all of the problems. And I guess I'm netting out here to say that I don't expect you to bless the idea tonight, but it's one more reason we need to dig into some of the alternatives much more deeply than we have. And for that reason, we should not approve this article tonight. We should ask people who've worked on this to go back to the drawing board. And I'm even willing to get involved and put my time in, but not for 24 meetings. But I think we need to move quickly, investigate the alternatives, come up with numbers to attach to all the alternatives, and you haven't seen them despite all of the comments we've had tonight. Put some numbers of them and get back here in the fall. No later, get back. We got to move fast. This has gone on long enough. Come back here in the fall, everybody having all of the information they need to make the best decision we possibly can. Thank you very much.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, and then Ms. Taylor.
That was a great idea, but the only problem was we voted last night a wind turbine bylaw that would eliminate these turbines moving 10 feet. We would have to move them, and once you move them, we would be under a different permit process, and in fact, we could not move them. So these things have all been thought through by this board. And incidentally, more study, the $392,000 that was spent by the Clean Energy Group was for the consultants to come up with those hard numbers to begin with in the WTOP. A portion, granted, was for the facilitator, but most of the rest was for professional guidance and engineering. So, I mean, as people say, we can continue to study this, folks. Sooner or later, you have to fish or cut bait. Sooner or later, we have to put it to the voters. We can continue to stall this. And one thing we did find out in the WTOP process, we surely were hoping for it, but not everybody is going to agree on one solution.
Ms.
This,
Taylor.
thank you.
Ms. Taylor?
Unlike Julia Taylor, Precinct 6, unlike last night, I think I'm the first person to speak in favor of this motion other than the selectman, which I don't like to be, but I will. The selectmen voted for the turbines, to put them up, and town meeting voted to put up the turbines. And we're not to blame for what happened, but we definitely have to take the responsibility for what happened, and we have to take the responsibility of solving the problem. I'm sure the selectmen see absolutely no political advantage in proposing that we spend $14 million on dismantling the turbines. They're only doing it because they take that political responsibility and that moral responsibility very seriously, and I commend them for doing so. Yes, the town has to vote it at the ballot, but we, town meeting members, have to take our responsibility
very seriously, and we can't just let this go to the ballot and let it fall as it may, especially since those ballot questions don't have the money on there. The selectmen searched their conscience, and they did their homework, and this is what they've proposed. If I search my conscience, much as I don't want to spend the money, I have to vote yes.
Okay, Mr. Hampson. And then Mr. Zweig.
George Hampson, Precinct 5. I just wanted to have a positive bit of information about moving wind turbines. I saw the one, I think it was probably Wind 2, that in the middle of the night, I saw it coming along the highway. It's incredibly complex. I think that in order to get this started, you could simply call one of the companies to find out if they can investigate it without spending any money. I also saw the one in Fairhaven on the move. It was unbelievable what they did. So you don't have a long list of people that do this. These people are very, very, very well qualified. And what they do is very limited as far as numbers of people. So I think you could get that number without spending any money. That's what I would do. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Zweig.
Thanks again, Mr. Moderator. Ron Zweig, Precinct 1. I just was going to once again read a little section here. In terms of the point about relocation, there's an exemption clause in your books under Article 7. And that exemption says, any wind energy system in existence as of the effective date of this article shall be considered conforming and may apply for a special permit under this article to alter, modify, relocate, or otherwise make improvements consistent with this article. So just as a point of clarification on that point, what I came really to speak about, though, concerns, basically my comment is framed in the context of Selectman Murphy's point last evening about looking forward and moving forward, and Mr. Latimer's point on applicable constitutional statutes to this whole issue that we're facing. But first, look around this room. This august body could make a decision that would affect Falmouth for the next 18 years, or essentially for a generation, at a cost of between $1.2 to $1.3 million a year for nothing. That is, with no benefit to the town if the turbines are dismantled. This will impact us as grandparents, parents, grandchildren, including our 9-year-old granddaughter, and potentially our great-grandchildren. For my family, 3 generations live in Falmouth. Perhaps some of you already have great-grandchildren here, making it 4 generations. It will not only affect current, but also future homeowners and renters. Last night, the moderator made a request on behalf of the Service Center to donate canned goods tonight. But now, try to imagine what the lobby could look like if twice a year, at the time of these meetings, it was filled with $500,000 to $600,000 worth of canned goods, medical supplies, school books, and other goods for financially disadvantaged in our community. That's where the money could possibly go. Likely $1.2 to $1.3 million of charitable giving within our community could be lost each year for the next 18 years if the turbines are dismantled. Now I come to my question. Through the moderator, with his permission, I would like to ask Mr. Suso a question. One moment. Okay. But first, using this past few moments of quiet, The highest sound level measured at this podium was about 50 dBA. 50 dBA is what you're hearing. That's 50 dBA. The dBA range is what can be heard by the human ear. As a comparison, the sound of peepers at my bedroom window last night varied between 55 to 65 dBA, again using this device. They live around a vernal pool about several feet from, well, about 100 feet from my window. Of course, they only peep at night. Can I sleep at night? And not all year round, as we know. So it's interim. It's not all the time. I don't know what the infrasound coming from them is, but I know what the dBA is. Regarding the turbine sound, the town received a May 2012 report from the state's Department of Environmental Protection that shows that in 4 instances, the outdoor sound level at one residence across from the wastewater treatment plant was in exceedance of the 10 decibel limit above ambient. The highest exceedance was 1.9 dBA. 1.9 dBA. That's 50 dBA. Above the limit with the total measured level, the highest point, the highest measurement at that point was 40.9 dBA from the report. 40.9 outside. The 50 dBA we're listening to inside is what we're witnessing. My question to Mr. Suso is this. Has a DEP or any other state agency sent a complaint or citation to Falmouth that our municipal turbines were in violation of state laws with regard to noise or any other factor?
Mr. Suso.
If I understand the question, Mr. Moderator, we have not received any notice of violation. We received a report from the DEP that indicated that at one location an exceedance was noted based on their testing, but it resulted in no notice of violation.
Thank you, Mr. Suso. Based on the above points and looking to this body's responsibilities, please vote no on this ad hoc motion to pursue the most costly by far of all the options to mitigate any wind turbine impacts as reported by Ms. Harper to the Board of Selectmen on January 30th or as found in the final January 2013 WTOP report. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Dufresne. Call the question. Mr. Dufresne is moving the previous question to close discussion. It requires a 2/3. All those in favor of closing discussion signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. To the chairs that the ayes have it by 2/3, and the question is closed. The question will now come on the main motion as amended. It's what was in the overhead slide, and we have the $100,000 appropriation contingent upon the positive ballot vote. All those in favor of the main motion as amended signify by standing, and the tellers a return account. In the first division, Mr. Sellers. 24. In the third division, Mr. Hampson. 37. The second division, Mr. Dufresne. 49. All those opposed signify by standing, and the tellers return account. In the first division, Mr. Sellers. 24. The third division. 28. In the second division. 39. Get 91. Get 91. Okay. By a count of vote of 110 in favor and 91 opposed, the majority passes. Article 23, Mr. Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, for a main motion. Mr. Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, for the main motion on Article 23.
Yes, Mr. Moderator. I recommend that the town vote to transfer from the certified free cash $140,000 from the operating budget deficits resulting from the shutdown of Win 1 and Win 2, said sum to be expended under the jurisdiction of the Board of Selectmen.
Okay, so Article 23, the main motion is as recommended. Discussion on Article 23. Mr. Patamas.
Jerry Patamas, Precinct 2, right? Yeah. It's been a long night. I'm also the wastewater superintendent. I think we have to pass this. I think it was explained beforehand, and please correct me right, that this money will only be used if we don't have money to operate the wastewater treatment plant or pay the wastewater treatment plant electricity bill. We can't afford not to it. By law, I can't shut this thing down. So I think this is just good government to say, if needed, the selectmen will use this money to continue operation of the electrical bills at the wastewater treatment plant. Is that correct? Someone.
Mr. Chairman.
I think that's best served from the Finance Committee and from...
Ms. Petit? Or Madam Chairman, whoever wants.
It's in the explanation. If you will notice, if I can... Sorry about that. It's in the explanation. The funds requested will provide for 2 months of energy costs for fiscal year 2013 and the projected fiscal year 2014 energy needs for the wastewater treatment plant if the wind turbines are shut down and no longer provide energy to meet the demand of the wastewater treatment facility.
Okay. Mr. Latimer.
Richard Latimer, Precinct 2. All I can say is, phew, already like that, it's cost us 140 grand for the folly of spending $14 million to get nothing back for it, just to waste the money we've already spent. And already, just like that, it's going to cost us $140,000. I would hope that anybody listening here in the voting public understands what we're doing here come May. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Netto.
Joe Netto, Precinct 9, again, confusion. This is a special town meeting which should, as Mrs. Miani started to say, cover the cost for the next typically 2 months. How come as of July 1st, 2013, the start of FY 2014, we haven't covered the operational cost of the electricity for the wastewater plant? I can't understand how come the costs weren't built into the operating budget, the yellow pages.
I think it's a time frame that they hadn't made this decision until after the budget had left the station.
Well, we knew we kind of knew what this was going to happen, that these turbines weren't going to be operating. No, please, you can shake your head no, please, because it's always better to appropriate money and not spend it than to do it the other way around. I'd have no problem with the article. And of course, we're not going to vote against it. But let's just see what's happening here, folks. Watch the process. This is a special town meeting. The money that anything we pass on a special is available tomorrow morning and is supposed to only cover the operating expenses that end June 30th. That's why it's a special.
Actually, Mr. Netto, the annual town meeting can also appropriate funds within the current fiscal year.
Okay, we've never done that as long as, okay. I'm not going to challenge on that one, but fine. But I thought that was the purpose of this special.
No.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman?
Mr. Netto, we start the budget in October.
Okay. Further discussion on Article 23? Hearing none, then the question will come on the main motion as recommended. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it by a majority. Article 24, Madam Chairman.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote that all articles considered in this town meeting be funded as voted for a total of $2,221,153, and that the Board of Selectmen be requested to place questions on the May 2013 annual town election ballot as voted in Article 22.
Okay, you've all heard the main motion to fund what we did in the special. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it by a two-thirds majority, and I so declare. Madam Chairman?
Mr. Moderator, ladies and gentlemen, I move the April 2013 special town meeting be closed.
Okay, you've all heard the main motion to close the special town meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, unanimous, and the meeting is closed. At this time, would all town meeting members present please rise for the establishment of a quorum for the annual town meeting. The tellers will return account. So you're gonna move. In the first division, 51. In the third division, Mr. Hampson. 65. In the second division, Mr. Dufresne. 94. By a counted vote of 210, we have a quorum, and I call the annual town meeting back into session. Madam Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I move reconsideration of Article 23.
We have a motion to reconsider Article 23, which is the operating budget. We have new information.
I move.
Oh, we have new information?
Yes, we do have new information. We would like to change the bottom line of the operating budget.
Okay, so we had an error in the final number of the budget, so the purpose of reconsideration is to open it up and fix the final total. All those in favor of reconsideration signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, unanimous, Madam Chairman.
I move the budget be voted in the amount of $112,645,739.
Okay, $112,645,739. Any discussion? Hearing none, the question will come on the main motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, unanimous. Article 24. Madam Chairman, for a main motion.
I have to find my page here.
Page 32.
I have different pages. Oh. Mr. Chairman, I move Article 24 as recommended.
Okay, Article 24 as recommended. This is that a sum of $5,600,000 appropriated to pay the cost of design, construction, and any other costs related to the implementation of the town's comprehensive wastewater management plan, and to authorize borrowing under Chapter 44, Section 7.1 of the general laws. Discussion on Article 24. Ms. Turkington.
Mr. Moderator, with your permission, a couple of members of the Water Quality Management Committee who have particular expertise in this matter are with me, as well as Sia Karplus, who is our staff person, as well as Amy Lowell, who at the wastewater department, if we may be heard on this matter. Is there a pointer available? Thank you. Is it on? Yeah. Great. Make it work. Eric Turkington, Precinct 1, and chairman of the Water Quality Management Committee. And we're here to speak on Article 24, which is one of the largest investments that this town has ever been asked to make. It's a major project. It's a very complicated project, and we will present as much as we can and take as many questions as we can. Let me start by telling you the three elements in this article are the Lower Little Pond project, the Bournes Pond inlet widening, and treatment plant upgrades. Most of it is design and permitting, with the exception of one part of the treatment plant upgrading. Okay. To begin with, the purpose of this committee and the purpose of this article is to protect the most valuable resource this town has, and that's its water bodies. Megansett Harbor, Fiddler's Cove, Rand's Canal, Wild Harbor, West Falmouth Harbor, Quissett Harbor, Oyster Pond, Salt Pond, Falmouth Harbor, Little Pond, Great Pond, Green Pond, Bournes Pond, Eel Pond, Waquoit Bay. This town has more estuaries than any other town in Massachusetts. They are the focal point of our community's recreation, for fishing, for boating, for shellfishing. They are a huge contributor to all of our property values, whether you're waterfront, water view, or just live in the town of Falmouth. Your value is enhanced enormously by the existence and the use of these estuaries. These estuaries are in terrible trouble. And we all know why. The main cause of their rapid deterioration these last couple of decades, excess nitrogen. And most of it, we know where it comes from. It comes from the massive development that has brought this town from 3,500 people to 30,000. We've put in roads, we've put in houses, we've put in parking lots, we've put in malls on top of cranberry bogs. We have done everything you can to add to the nitrogen load that rolls into every one of these estuaries. And 75% of that nitrogen, we know where it comes from. It comes from septic systems in our backyards. Falmouth's comprehensive wastewater management plan has been a work in progress for at least 4 years. It has three basic simple elements. Element number one is to pursue demonstration projects. And you all remember we were here at the last town meeting and we went through each one of them and told you the progress of how they've been going. This town is leading the state, and in many ways leading the country, in examining demonstration projects, alternatives to sewering. Not just examining them by hiring a consultant, but examining them by putting them into the water, into the ground, into wherever we need to put them, to see what works. The second element in this town's comprehensive wastewater management plan is to sewer as little as possible. That is a radical proposal to the state and federal agencies that are overseeing this. Most towns just come in and say, we're going to sewer everything, and we're going to do it over the next so many years, and it's going to cost a lot of money, and that's the way it is. Falmouth didn't say that. Falmouth said, we want to sewer as little as possible and pursue demonstration projects in the hopes that they will obviate or reduce the need for sewering. The third piece that this town is doing that is different than other towns is we're not putting a schedule out of when we do the projects. We're putting a schedule out of when we can afford to do the projects with no tax rate increase. Those are the three elements in this comprehensive wastewater plan. Who approved these three elements and who approved this plan? Well, for starters, you did. 2 years ago, we came to you with a plan that had these three elements. You voted unanimously to approve $2.7 million to pursue sewer design and alternatives. The voters accepted your offer on the May ballot in that year by a 2-to-1 margin in every precinct. The voters of this town said, yes, we want to do those things. The Water Quality Management Committee did. A unanimous vote of this committee in July on the draft comprehensive wastewater management plan with those three elements. The Board of Selectmen did. A unanimous vote in August of 2012 to approve and to send to the state that draft comprehensive wastewater management plan. And when it got to the state, the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs did. They looked at this proposal, this radical proposal, compared to everything else they'd received from anybody else, and they said it was adequate. Adequate in their bureaucraties means this is okay. You know, they had 225 questions to ask, which we expected, but they said it was adequate. Now, there's been some confusion, and I don't blame anybody for being confused over the last half a dozen years, because there's been plan after plan after plan. So let me just lay out to get everybody's memory back on the same page. You see that red big circle? That was the $600 million plan that was put out in the year 2009. I think we all remember that one because we all fell out of our chairs when we read about it. We said, but the reason it was that price tag, that $600 million, is because it basically said we need to sewer everything south of Route 28 and a whole lot of things north of Route 28. Okay. That plan was wisely rejected by the Board of Selectmen, and they appointed a review committee, and the review committee undertook for the next 2 years to look at every piece of this and come up with a different plan, and they did. What you see in the yellow circle is what the review committee came up with 2 years later. They said, we're not going to be sewering north of 28. We're not going to be sewering all the way over to Waquoit Bay. We're going to be sewering less and less. And for the first time, alternatives were put into the mix. The review committee said, we're going to do alternatives. We're going to study them. We're going to put them in place in the hopes that they will reduce the amount of sewering we have to do. But that plan came to about $320 million. The third plan, which is the one that you and we and the selectmen and the state have all had a look at now, is the one we're talking about tonight. It only talks about sewering one area of this town, the Little Pond Lower Watershed, okay? That is a $45 million sewering plan, and it also includes a whole lot of alternatives being put into place and being put into practice. But in terms of the sewering element, the big red circle is what you would have had 4 years ago. The yellow circle is what you would have had 2 years ago. The white circle is what you're being asked to look at today. So the question comes then, why is that Little Pond area the one that was chosen to be done? Okay, you can see in the plan there, it's basically Mara Vista Avenue south. It's the Mara Vista Peninsula, and it's the eastern portion of Falmouth Heights, and it's the Falmouth Mall and the commercial area right along 28, the Admiralty in that area. Why was that area chosen? Well, reason number one, Little Pond is the most degraded. Of all of our 15 estuaries, Little Pond is in the worst shape. Fish kills, smells. Andy is sitting here smiling. He lives there. He knows. That pond is in rough, rough shape. Naturally, because it's surrounded by the most densely developed, near built-out part of town. We have hundreds of very, very small lots, some 5,000 square feet or less. Many of them, most of them, I would say, still have cesspools. Many of them cannot meet Title V. If you had to pick one part of town that needed sewering, that would be, everybody would tell you, that would be the one. And 30 years ago, 35 years ago, this town recognized that even then, even before they knew about the nitrogen and where it was going and what it was doing, this town, when it built the sewer system we have today, designed it to include sewering this area as well. And so all the existing pipes that run down Main Street, that run up Jones Road, that run to the plant, all of those, all the pump stations along the way, the sewer plant that's up in West Falmouth, it was all designed to accept this quantity of septage that would come out of this neighborhood. They were planning from day one to have this be part of the total plan. Consequently, if you had to pick this area to sewer, it is the most cost-effective area to sewer. The houses are close together. You don't have to spend much on the piping to take it someplace. You've already got a plant that can take it. The plant capacity is way more than it needs to take this amount. So for all these reasons, that's why the Little Pond area, and only the Little Pond area, is in this plan. Some people will say, well, Little Pond could be restored without sewering. The answer is no. Shellfish, which we have one of the world's experts on shellfish here, who gets very excited about the prospect of shellfish being an answer. We all get very excited about the prospect of shellfish being an answer. It is a long-term nitrogen reduction strategy which has been untested anywhere in this country for this purpose, unapproved anywhere in this country for this purpose. And as many of you may have noticed, we're having a little trouble getting it approved at the Falmouth Conservation Commission. So it's got a long way to go before this will be acceptable as a substitute means for nitrogen removal. Inlet opening at Little Pond was another idea that people said, well, why don't you open that particular inlet? Well, we got a lot of flack from people who live there who were concerned about erosion of their waterfront. And it happens to be a very narrow, very shallow kind of pond at the entrance. So even if you doubled the inlet opening and you did some dredging, it would only remove 9% of the nitrogen. We've actually explored it to that extent of having the engineers put a number on it, 9%. Another idea that's been floated out there, permeable reactive barriers. We think it's a good idea. We're going to try it someplace. Mara Vista is not the place because you need a long stretch of publicly owned waterfront to put in a permeable reactive barrier. Many people have been excited, as we have, at the prospect that eco toilets might have a role in the future. Eco toilets have problems. Homeowner acceptance is one. Retrofitting houses is very complicated and very expensive. The technology is in its infancy. In fact, I will tell you, the only place in Massachusetts where these can be installed in by the State Plumbing Board is Falmouth, because this committee and Cia Karplis went to the State Plumbing Board and persuaded them that this was something worth doing. We wanted to do it in Falmouth. We're going to do it in Falmouth. But it's still very much in its infancy. And every estuary is different in this town, all 15 of them. If these demonstration projects prove successful, many of these estuaries, we hope, can be restored without sewering. Little Pond is not one of them. Those are the dead fish from last summer in Little Pond. little pond needs to be sewered. Coming to town meeting and trying to persuade people to do sewering is a less than rewarding activity, and always has been. In 1929, some hardy soul came here and said, we would like to build a sewer, and it would only cost you $65,000, and the town said no. In 1933, they came in with a little higher cost. It was $88,000 that year, and the town said no. In 1938, the federal government came in. They were going to give us half the money in a grant and an interest-free loan. No, the town didn't want that. 1947, we bit the bullet. Woods Hole was literally sinking in its own septage. Everybody was on a cesspool back then in the Woods Hole. They actually came to the point of spending money. They actually built a sewer in Woods Hole for $168,625. After that, we reverted back to our form. In 1957, the feds offered us 30% grant for a $500,000 project, and the town said, nope, nope. 1979, after many, many, many studies and diversionary tactics that many of you still remember, we ended up, this town actually did a project. And those were the good old days when you could do a $21 million project and the state and the federal government paid 90% of it. So it cost the town $2.5 million. And that was the year that we built the current system. It goes, you know, the bike path, Woods Hole, Surf Drive, Main Street. That was also the time when, if we had done it, we could have done this area. It would have cost us $3 million. No, we were done. We didn't want any more sewering. So that was 30 years ago. 30 years later, it's time to say yes. There's two other parts to this proposal, and I'm going to just touch on them briefly because they are clearly not as
Mr. Chairman,
controversial.
sorry, just procedurally, we've hit the 15-minute presentation mark.
5 more minutes.
5 more minutes to complete the presentation. All those in favor of additional 5 minutes signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and you have another 5.
Okay. Yeah, the two hopefully non-controversial parts of this program are the Boynes Pond inlet widening, opening the channel from 50 feet to 90 feet. We need $300,000 by way of an appropriation to get the design and permitting for that. That will bring out from that pond the equivalent of reducing the nitrogen from 350 houses. That's a very cost-effective proposal. The other piece is some upgrades at the plant, flow measurement, something that's required by the settlement agreement that we signed with the state about the plant. These are issues that Amy Lowell will be happy to discuss if anybody wants to hear more about those. Next. Now, if we don't do it now, if we don't do this now, and I'm talking about at this town meeting, we will move ahead with no design and no permits, okay? What that means is we will have no final approved CWMP, Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan, by December, which is the date that this town has been ordered and agreed to have a plan in place that's approved. No design and no permits mean we will have no construction option using the 2014 window of opportunity. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But if you don't have the design and you don't have the permit, you can't build anything. That also means we will no longer have the option of being able to apply for revolving fund grants from the state, loans rather. 0% loans or 2% loans. We won't be able to do any of that. But now before we get to this, I want to describe the larger picture. A lot of people in this room are going to think, well, I can vote against this. You know, we've been voting against it for 100 years. We can vote against it again. Well, if it were only Falmouth that had an interest in this, they might be right. They could go home, we could not do it, life would go on. It is not only Falmouth that has an interest in this. As we speak and as we sit here tonight, there's a pending lawsuit at the Federal District Court in Boston brought by the Conservation Law Foundation against the Environmental Protection Agency. That lawsuit basically is asking the EPA to say that the way they treat sewer plants in terms of their regulation of them is the way they should treat your backyard septic system. They want to treat everybody's septic system in everybody's backyard as a point source of pollution. If you can imagine having the EPA in charge of regulating your backyard septic system, that is what that lawsuit would bring to us. This town and its Board of Selectmen were smart enough and wise enough to engage Gregor McGregor, one of the best environmental lawyers in the state, to represent this town to try to get us intervener status in that case. Because if it's just the EPA and just the Environmental Law Foundation having a conversation, as they say, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. We need to be at the table, and thanks to the selectmen, we're going to be at the table. But that doesn't mean the Conservation Law Foundation won't win. And if they win, all bets are off. You will look back at this plan and say, gee, we should have done that. Because they will come back with a $600 million plan. That's what they come back with. And the other player in this is the Cape Cod Commission. They are getting funds for studies. They are being ordered to do plans. They are moving themselves into a situation of being the regional entity that makes all these decisions for the towns. If we have a plan in place that we chose and that we agree with, we're going to be all right. If we don't, the Cape Cod Commission is going to start telling us where to do and what we should do and how much it should cost. And if you remember, their proposal, which they have been talking about for Cape Cod, is from $3 to $8 billion. They're not proposing to do this with oysters or with eco toilets. They're proposing sewering, a whole lot more than this plan calls for in our town and in every town. So the choice before you is not this plan or nothing. Your choice is this plan or their plan. And their plan is going to be the $600 million plan. So how would we pay for this plan, the $45 million plan? Well, here's some simple arithmetic. Article 24 and Article 25 equals no tax increase. No property tax increase. We will hear from people who have an issue with that, but it happens to be true. Because of very smart planning by the Finance Committee and the Selectmen and the Town Manager in the last few years, we have built up a financial mechanism to be able to free up a revenue stream that could pay off bonds for this project, for the water filtration plant, both of them, with no tax increase. It is close to brilliant financial planning. This town is the only one I know of, except for Chatham, who has actually done it that way. But you have to do it now. If we don't have the plans now, we can't borrow to do the building next year. If you don't do this year and next year, the window of opportunity, which Mr. Boyer has popularized the phrase, but the window that allows us to do this goes away. You use it or you lose it. Now is the time to use it, and next year. If we don't use it in those two times, it's over. So, should we move ahead with this plan? The Board of Selectmen says yes. The Finance Committee says yes. The Board of Health says yes. The Water Quality Management Committee says yes. The Town Manager and the Finance Director say yes. What we're asking you to do tonight is give it a 2/3 vote and let the voters say yes. We're available for questions.
Okay. Okay, Article 24. Mr. Donahue. Ms. Lichtenstein. Let's actually do any questions for the committee first, okay?
A couple of questions. And one that I've asked you numerous times, and you've always told me that if we sewer from Mara Vista all the way over to Falmouth Harbor, including the heights, what would that entail we'd have to do to the treatment plant in order to take care of that extra capacity? And other than that, if you could you answer that one question first?
Hi, I'm Amy Lowell. I'm the town's assistant wastewater manager. Nothing has to be done to the plant just to handle that capacity. We are asking for funds under this article for some upgrades to the plant that are needed, whether or not this additional flow comes, but there is no additional effort that needs to be made at the plant just because of this flow coming in. As Eric said, the plant was originally designed with this area as a phase 2 to be incorporated.
I think, did you hear my question? I think we're not talking on the same. I'm saying from Mara Vista all the way to Falmouth Harbor, including the heights. There's a section of that semicircle that you had that we're not doing the heights. And my thing has always been that the heights, all those big houses up on the top of that hill are on postage-sized lots, and they don't have room for their septic system.
I understand
And
your
this
question.
would be a time that we could at least put the pipe down the street, and if the capacity of the plant can't take it.
Well, I will say the last thing I expected from you was an advocacy for additional sewering, but I'm glad to answer that one, which is the Little Pond watershed. Basically, that's where when the rain comes and it goes into the ground, it goes into the Little Pond. Half of the heights goes into Little Pond, and that's why it's in this plan. The other half goes into Falmouth Harbor or into the ocean. And frankly, we only wanted to do the most impacted watershed, which was Little Pond. You could, in the future, do something to add to it that would relieve the amount going into Falmouth Harbor, but we've only recently received the study on Falmouth Harbor, and frankly, the end at the harbor entrance is actually not too badly off. So for a lot of reasons, we wanted to stick with the most impacted water body, which was Little Pond.
I understand that from the water quality standpoint, but there is also the property and people import. And that, I don't know, is there 100 houses up in there or so? And I would think if we could include that, you would have my big vote. And by the way, I'm convinced, I've changed my mind on this whole thing. I think that this project has to go through. But I would really like to see that little section included in it if as I say, that's why I was saying on the plant. If the plant can't, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Lichtenstein? I just want to remind town meeting members, we're deciding whether or not to do the money and the authorization. What we're not going to do at this town meeting is rewrite the plan. So if you really want to rewrite the plan, then you vote no and send it back to the planning committee. I don't want this to become a debate about rewriting sections of the plan. This is whether or not to authorize this appropriation and the borrowing. Ms. Lichtenstein? Okay, any further questions? Ms. Lichtenstein's going to offer an amendment. Yep, Ms. Driscoll? You got a new job there, John? I think you just hold the, on the bottom, you hold it in for a minute, and then it should light up.
Let's go Precinct 7.
Thank you.
You've mentioned the retired debt that would be covering the $5.6 million on design and engineering. And the same for the next article, I believe, as well, is retiring debt will be covering the design and engineering. How will we be covering the construction costs that you've discussed in terms of 43 and 40-something else million on these articles?
Mr. Chairman.
is ready and able, we'd be happy to have her answer this one.
With the schedule, we would be using retiring debt until approximately 2019, when we'd start paying for construction. We'd actually probably start paying through the debt service for construction a year or two earlier than that. There will be several factors that will need to be discussed when we go in and start discussing construction, and one of those will be betterments. So that's really where you might see, when we vote, and if betterments are voted and discussed, there'll be a full financial analysis done on that and how that would affect the tax rate. But right now, moving forward with this project, you wouldn't see an impact until 2019.
Okay, further questions? Mr. Mancini?
Mark Mancini, Precinct 7. Moderator, through you to the committee. They say our taxes won't go up if we vote for this. If we vote it down, will our taxes go down?
Yes.
Any other questions? Yeah, Mr. Dufresne. No, with the mic, please.
Adrian Dufresne, Precinct 2. Are there any federal grants available for these types of projects?
I guess I'll handle this one. I'm Steve Rafferty from Precinct 2. I actually do work in the sort of engineering industry. Right now, there is no grants from the federal government, but I will remind you, probably at the risk of reopening the discussion that went on for 2 nights, that on occasion our government tries to stimulate our economy by offering money through various funding mechanisms, and they're always looking for shovel-ready projects. We think it's prudent to have a shovel-ready project to go, should money become available again.
Okay, Mr. Stetcher, question?
Bernie Stetcher, Precinct 3. I just wonder if you can give us some assurances that there are going to be zoning changes before the sewering goes in, because those postage stamp lots will then be able to build McMansions on them. At least I think so.
That's a very good point. The state does not give out grants for this sort of thing anymore. What they do, and we referenced earlier, was you can get 2% loans, you can get 0% loans, which we are thinking that we ought to work for. But to get the 0% loans, you have to put into place controls over exactly what you're concerned about. Nobody thinks you should put a sewer system in so that everyone who now has a 2-bedroom house can have a 6-bedroom house. That is something to be avoided, and it's something this town would want to avoid. So we will come back to you in the fall with exactly the kind of proposal you're describing to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Okay, Ms. Fenwick.
Judy Fenwick, Precinct 1. I'm hearing about retiring debt, and I'm curious through 2019, could you give us an amount annually for retiring debt, starting with 2014?
I'm going to answer the question just because I have a spreadsheet in front of me, so I'm going to answer it just a little bit differently. I'm going to answer it in the way of what we would need to spend in order to keep the levy at the same rate. So it would essentially be the retiring debt. In 2015, it would be $2.3 million. In 2016, it would be $2.5 million. And in 2017, it would be $3 million. And then 2018 would be $3 million that you would spend in those years to keep your levy at the same level. 2014 is $1.7 million.
Okay, good. All right, I start to hand over to the left somewhere. Yep. Yep. And then Mr. Putnam next.
Wayne Lewis, Precinct 7. Eric, I want to switch over to Bowen's Pond. By widening that from 50 to 90 feet, is there any kind of an estimate as to how much nitrogen will be released through that channel and where will it go?
Yep. 57% of the excess nitrogen? Of the total, okay. Of the total nitrogen entering the watershed, 57% of it will go out as a result of widening that. And the answer is it will go out into the ocean where it disperses instantly and enormously to the point where it's undetectable.
It's not going to affect the scallop beds or anything like that?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Putnam.
Andrew Putnam, Precinct 9. Quick question here. How far along are some of these alternative projects that we were talking about just the other town meeting?
How much time do you have? we have half a dozen alternatives. You want to give a short one on the shellfish, and maybe we. Does everybody want to hear all the alternatives?
No.
Okay.
I mean, let me clarify then. I don't want to hear all the alternatives.
Let me
you know,
try
I
to
don't
do a
wanna go
quick
line by
summary.
line.
Let me try to do a quick summary because we meet every 2 weeks. We're on TV. I'm hoping that a lot of you watch this. We have retained a consultant for the PRBs. We are in the process of identifying the optimum locations to put a demonstration PRB in. Permeable reactive barrier. That's one. That's moving along. We'll be back with that. We have some funding available to go to the next step on that still. We talked about the inlet widening. That's actually an alternative that we've taken forward, and it's going forward quickly. We've developed, we've been before the Concom. We're going to go back in front of them on the 17th. I expect we've got a good understanding with them about what we're doing. We have some issues to resolve, but we're going to put between 1 acre and 2 acres of oysters into Little Pond either this year or next year or over the next 3 years to see how they work, and then we'll be looking at other locations to put them in. We've developed a grant program to encourage people to put eco-toilets in so we can measure it, so we can get values from the state and credits for anybody that puts an eco-toilet in. Not in the Little Pond area, but other parts of the town. As we get more of those, will be better. And we've now begun looking closer at denitrifying systems on lot. We've toured some facilities and looked at them, and we're going to pick that up and work on it some more. And we're open to any other ideas that come up that are valuable, viable, and creative ideas. So we're working them in the order that we can do, and we've made progress in every area.
So I have a quick follow-up question to that. Would you say that we probably won't start seeing the effects of these until later this year or next year, that we would start seeing some of these projects come back with results that we can quantify?
Well, each project is on its own timeline, but once they get started, the DEP wants to see a series of years, like 3 to 5 years in some cases, so that they have accurate data to judge whether these things are going to work in the long term. So our premise here is that 5 years from now, we should have good, solid answers on all these alternatives and good, solid judgments by DEP as to how much they will consider them viable and for how much. But it's a 3 to 5 year window, I think, for the final results of these to be meaningful.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions for the committee? Mr. Finneran?
Mark Finneran, Precinct 6. As you know, I've been part of this process right from the beginning, and if you recall, about 2.5 years ago, we were at Monomoy School, I think it was, in Yarmouth, and George Freegon from Newfields had the system that you put in your backyard about the size of a phone booth. You could build it yourself for 10 grand. It was experimental. And it brought the septage down to below 3 parts per million. Last week at the Eco Toilet Summit, and many of you were there, some students from Caltech on a grant from the Gates Foundation have made this thing so you can drop it into your septic tank, and it's supposedly soon available. With your statement and what we all know is in 3, 4, 5 years, we're going to know what these alternatives can do, and at $10,000 a unit, 900 homes, we could do all of Mira Vista for $9 million. So why in this plan isn't there engineered, besides designing it the way you want all the way, in steps where we may be able to stop at Randolph Street. We may be able to stop halfway up Mara Vista and then just pipe it down Randolph Street. So it gives us the opportunity to save the money if these alternatives do in fact work.
Well, a couple of reasons. The goal here is to get Little Pond cleaned up, to get as close as we can to 100%. Doing it in stages won't do that. Construction-wise, doing things in stages doesn't save you as much money as you might think. Costs tend to go up, not down, over the course of time. So, really, this proposal of just Little Pond was the bare bones one, the smallest one we could come up with that would have a measurable result that would actually clean up the worst estuary we have, and at the least cost. Doing it in segments wouldn't be such a gain.
This is for the engineering. The actual construction won't start for 4 or 5 years. Is that not correct?
Well, it would be voted next year. What's the time frame? 2015 would be the actual construction.
Beginning of.
Yeah.
So it really leaves us no window for saving money on this particular peninsula. That's unfortunate.
Well, we have 15 estuaries, and each one's going to have its own answers. And our fondest hope is that these alternatives will turn out to be viable and useful and good substitutes for sewering in many of these other estuaries. This one was just so overloaded, thanks to all the development and the commercial development and everything we've done to ruin that water body we did. It was just so overdone, there was no practical answer except sewering this small area of it.
Okay, Mr. McGrath, question? We're doing questions here.
My name is Michael McGrath. Most of you know me, but since 1986, I've been developing a particular denitrifying septic system. My firm employs 3 operators, and my advice to town meeting is go ahead. We need to sewer Mara Vista, and we need to sewer Falmouth Heights. There's no way to put effective, approved denitrifying septic systems on those lots. You have to sewer. For the people that know me, I'm not fond of treatment plants, but we need to sewer those 2 neighborhoods. I don't think we have any options. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any questions? All right. Ms. Lichtenstein.
Hi, guys. I was asked by Ron Swalowitz to make an amendment to this motion because he knew he was unable to be on town meeting floor this evening. Can I have the slide, please, for the amendment for 24? I'd like to thank the committee for all of their hard work. And I want to say up front, I'm not against sewers. I've been part of the wastewater treatment program at my college and taught in it, so. Okay. I move to amend the main motion as follows, that the sum of $1,100,000 is appropriated to pay the cost of regulatory requirements associated with permitting the wastewater treatment system in the amount of $800,000, and for engineering and design for Bournes Pond inlet widening in the amount of $300,000. And that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, is authorized to borrow the said amount under and pursuant to Chapter 44, Section 7, parenthesis 1 of the general laws, or pursuant to any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds and notes of the town therefore. No sum shall be borrowed or expended hereunder unless and until the town shall have voted to exclude the amounts required to pay any borrowing authorized by this vote from the limits of Chapter 57, Section 21C of the general laws, also known as Prop 2.5. This motion seeks to fund immediate concerns while delaying, not eliminating, just delaying sewering. This is all about timing. Sewering, to some degree, may be the very best alternative for Little Pond. However, right now, the cost is staggering. We're looking at $5 million tonight for planning. We're looking at 44 to construct it. We're looking at 8 to hook up to it, and unknown costs to operate it once it's up and running. Before we start down the path to spend $60 million for this solution, we should know if it's the only path we have to take. We're only asking for a little time. Let's look a little bit further and let some of the alternates see what we get from them before we do this. We need new concepts and technologies to be applied to preventing a bankrupt and economic burden on the taxpayers of the town. EPA and DEP have expressed a willingness to work with us and not fine us in developing these new approaches that are more ecologically sustainable. They are water and energy conservative, and they are not economically disastrous. Give the selectmen some guidance that you really don't want sewers unless they're the absolute last choice. The $4,500,000 that we removed from here could be added to the appropriation for the water filtration and treatment system that we're going to fund, hopefully, in Article 25. This will take advantage of the town's existing debt drop-off, that window of opportunity that we have. So it will just fund a little bit more of the drinking water project. It will still leave the money for the sewage available to us in the future. A very wise and long-term member of town meeting advised me tonight to tell you that this is a matter of timing. How many times over the last few years have we discussed projects? How many hours have we spent debating projects that maybe we didn't spend enough time talking about before we did them? We're just asking for a little bit of time here. Also, the funding, if we apply the money to the other one, it will still be available for it. So we don't lose anything. We're just delaying. We're getting a little bit of time and hopefully won't run into any of the problems we've had before. So we think it's a win-win for the town, and we ask that you support this amendment. Thank you.
Okay, discussion on the amendment. Yep.
Has a
Okay.
PowerPoint?
Yep. So the amendment is to reduce the scope of the main motion to $1,100,000. That's $800,000 for the wastewater treatment portion and $300,000 for the pond widening. Ms. Menge.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'm Hilda Menge, and I'm in Precinct 8. I want to take the whole sewer issue out of the abstract and the budget and more into the reality, because I don't know how many people really realize what it means to plan and to have a sewer. I'm extremely worried about climate change, and that is what drives all this for me. I believe that it's really time for us to make drastic changes if we want to secure a future for our kids. That's really the most important reason why I'm doing all this. And I think if we read this statement from Albert Einstein, that is exactly where we are at. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. The time that we can no longer do the same thing over and over again, that is no longer a possibility. We are in a different world right now. We have different problems. And this is one of our big problems that we're discussing today. We have seen this picture of the dead fish before. We are faced with huge problems environmentally and economically, and combine the two, and we have big problems socially. Next, please. We have been discussing these problems for years. We have heard that from Eric. And each time we learn something new. And a lot of these issues that you see there have not been resolved. We are talking about sewers and big pipes, but we haven't resolved discharge sites, betterments, land use control, pharmaceuticals, wasting water, wasting nutrients, wasting energy, and climate change. It hasn't come up today. I haven't heard a thing about it. And it's of great concern to me. So as we have noticed over the last couple of days, we do not always agree with everything, but I think we can agree on one thing. We all eat and we all excrete. There is no debate about this. Next, please. Here is what we are doing with the present system of flush and forget. This is truly a low flush toilet. These are the actual numbers and actual barrels. For this amount of human waste, 90 gallons of urine and 30 gallons of feces, we flush all that water, which is pure drinking water, at high cost and polluting it all. And then at the other end, we have to clean it all. This is of great concern to me when it's about climate change, because there's a huge amount of energy and waste in that whole system. Next, please. And then this is another part of the puzzle that we never hear about. Once it's into the pipe, which takes a lot of energy, it goes to a sewer plant. The stuff that we flush doesn't go away. When you flush and forget, you might forget, but somebody on the other end gets it. It doesn't go away. It goes somewhere. It's just not your backyard, and it's not your pond. It's someone else's pond, someone else's land. So here it is, some numbers. At the very best, if we do a really good job, 7 to 8% of nitrogen still goes in the ground, lots of it gets lost in the air, and the rest goes into the sludge off the Cape to another community. Well, that community happens to have an incinerator. And these are the numbers for all the trucks per year that I got from the DPW that go over the bridge to the lowest bidder, wherever we can get rid of it. Probably a poor community somewhere. So these, I couldn't put all the trucks in because I would fill the whole page, but the numbers are right there. And then at this moment, it gets trucked to the incinerator. And the incinerator puts out a lot of pollution and gets rid of a lot more nitrogen. Doesn't get rid of any of the other nutrients, doesn't get rid of any of the pollutants. It just burns up what is there in carbon, and the rest all stays in the ashes. And the ashes get trucked off, and then they go to another community, whoever is the lowest bidder. And that's where it's going to be toxic waste somewhere in a landfill. So I want you to realize when you start to plan for sewers, that's what you're planning for. And as far as I'm concerned, it is not sustainable. We might say it is cheap and we can afford it. No, we cannot afford it because the climate is changing, the world is changing, and we're ruining ourselves, and we have nothing left for our kids. And that is the reason why I'm doing all this. Next, please. Now, the alternatives. I would like to make a correction to Eric. It's not true that composting toilets are not permitted. I have a model in my house for the last 13 years that has been in existence for 50 years, that same model. So it's not in infancy. And they're permitted. You don't need a special permit for it. There are many models. You can put them in tomorrow without any special permit. So that was not true. The only thing that's different, we have recently gotten the permission to install urine diversion because it hasn't been used in this country. It has been used in Europe and in Australia and in many other places in the world. So I'm glad we got that. It's a really good thing, but it was not the truth. So if you see what's happening in the composting toilet, you have this little bit of human waste. After it's compost, it turns out to be 12 gallons. That is per year. You can put it in the back, in a little box in the back of your bicycle and bring it to the next facility. That doesn't take much truck. It doesn't take climate change. It doesn't take fuel. It is easy. It's a small problem. Next slide. And it's actually not a problem at all. It's an asset. It's what nature wanted to do. Because the food that you eat, all of it you excrete, except for the energy that you take out to live. Hardly any nutrients you will use to sustain yourself. All of it goes out of your body, and can be used and should be used as nature intended on the land where the food needs to be grown. Now, there is a big issue here, not just the nitrogen, not just the fossil fuel. We have gone beyond that. We have gone beyond peak phosphorus. And phosphorus is what we eliminate 99.9% of what we eat. And without phosphorus, we cannot grow food. And if you have no phosphorus in this world, we cannot have food. We have passed a peak phosphorus. If we don't collect our phosphorus now, your children will have very high food prices or no food, or your grandchildren, but it doesn't matter which generation. We want to have sustainability, and we want to build in with everything we do, we want to build in sustainability for the long term and not a disaster that the sewer is. I would like the next slide, please. So just to get the fear out of the picture, I would like to read this because this is what we got from the EPA. The EPA is seeking cost-effective solutions for retrofitting existing septic systems and groundbreaking and affordable technologies, as well as innovations in policy and regulation to address nutrient impacts to protect and restore the economic and ecosystem resources supported by coastal waters. We got it in January. The DEP supports an adaptive management approach to implementing a DMDL, taking the most cost-effective measures first, measuring the impact, and making adjustments where necessary, giving priority to projects with more immediate impact, such as ecotoilets, but especially the shellfish culture, on water quality will help communities adjust implementation steps if needed. I recommend here that we apply a range of alternative options and innovations before locking into sewering that are for generations to come. Sewers are not flexible. Once you have them in, you are locked in for generations. As I heard in the last meeting, you are locked in for 100 years. The world will not see 100 years where we can afford this. Thank you very much.
Okay, discussion on the amendment. Mr. Ketchum.
Thank you. Paul Ketchum, Precinct 1, former member of the Board of Health. I strongly urge you to not vote for this amendment. It's micromanaging what a significant committee and their work has gone into. There are some things that you have to realize that most of this wastewater in our town doesn't go into septic tanks. It goes into cesspools that have been here for 30, 40, 50 years. And that is not the way to continue to treat our waste products. The alternatives that are being looked at are a good approach, but you really have to treat septage and sewer with a very complex sequence of biological processes that are most favorably done in a plant like our sequencing batch reactor. So the important thing is to get rid of the nitrogen, which is not coming from the normal nitrogen cycle, because now in our world we are fixing nitrogen with the excess methane that we're making from fracking, and all over the world this nitrogen fertilizer gets taken to the farms and it's very cheap, and that's where the nitrogen comes from, and to get that back into the atmosphere where we took it from is a very complex biological process. And even our Title V's don't use denitrification because there are difficulties in doing denitrification. So I recommend that you fund this, the original article, that you don't vote for the amendment. They need that money to get started, and to not micromanage this committee. Thank you.
Mr. Waterbury.
John Waterbury, Precinct 1 and a member of the Board of Health. I encourage you to vote this amendment down and to vote for the article as presented. I would just remind you of our experience more recently, to build on the long list that Eric gave you, of our experience in New Silver Beach. When we first proposed that project and voted it here, it was a $4 million project. After 9 years of litigation, it cost us eventually $12 million. So if we procrastinate and drag these projects out and with the hope of finding a magic bullet to solve our problems, all we're going to do is increase the $43 million this project is projected to cost to $100 million or more. I encourage you to go ahead with the plan that this committee has put together and considered very carefully. Thank you.
And Ms. Shepherd, Mr. Waterbury, if you could just pass the mic to Ms. Shepherd.
Susan Shepherd, Precinct 1. I would just like to remind this body that this committee is also pursuing all those other alternatives. We need to do this now. Vote this amendment down. Move ahead with the alternatives. I expect we will have some wonderful results from some of them, but now is not the time. We need to get this part of it done. Thank you.
Okay, the question will come on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. No. Submit chairs that the noes have it. The question will now come on the main motion as recommended. This requires a 2/3. All those in favor of the main motion as recommended signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, unanimous. Article 25, Madam Chairman, for the main motion. Article 25, Madam Chairman, for the main motion.
Mr. Moderator, I move Article 25 as recommended.
Number 25, as recommended, this is the sum of $3,400,000 for the design and construction of the water treatment system or water filtration plant. Discussion on Article 25. Okay, which one should it be? Eight four. Okay. In your recommendation, we need to make a statutory reference change in the fourth line where it says Chapter 44, Section 7I. It should say Chapter 44, Section 8.4 of the general laws. Yeah, 8, and then in parentheses 4. Right. And at the in the second line, it says "and construction of a water treatment system or water filtration plant," striking out the word "design." Okay, that's the main motion. Discussion on Article 25. Mr. Heath. With the microphone, please.
This is more of a question. This is really a roughly $50 million question because this will lead on to the construction of a filtration plant, which we need. We paid $800,000 for a study, and out of this came a $46 million recommendation, but we don't have anything on what else or what alternatives were or what the design is that what we're going to design. And if someone could give a brief description of this, it would be appreciated. Obviously, when this was originally passed for $800,000, I believe the recommended or suggested amount would be that the filtration plant would cost $20 million. And during the course of the $800,000 study, it's doubled. And I think that it'd be good if someone could give us a little background and fill in on this. We obviously have to build a filtration plant. We put it off for something like 20 years.
Okay. Who, Mr. Jack?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Raymond Jack, Precinct 9, Director of Public Works. The $20 million is actually a carryover from all the way back in 1994, 1995, which was the cost of a plant back then and has just been carried forward for each of those subsequent years. In order to try to give you a broad overview of what the process being recommended by the board is, it would start off, it's a multiple barrier approach, as most treatment systems are. So I know that when we talk about a filtration plant, it is not just one item within a plant, it's actually a series of systems or processes. So we're talking about a first process of coagulation / DAF, and some of you may have heard that term. DAF is dissolved air flotation. Another term for that type of process would be coagulation flocculation. But in both instances, a chemical is added to the water in order to destabilize the particles in the water. So most of the things that are in water that are bad are negatively charged. And by neutralizing the electrical charges, it allows the particulates to agglomerate together. And if you ever actually saw it occur, it would look like the formation of little brown tufts of cotton in a swimming pool. Then they get denser and denser, and generally they precipitate out based on their density. Dissolved air flotation is the opposite of that. It pushes it to the surface, and that's because one of our primary concerns with Long Pond is a buoyant product, which happens to be algae. It wants to be buoyant, so the process makes it buoyant, pushes it to the top instead. So the goal of that process is to remove the particulates that you can see. It's also capable of adsorbing on the surface of those materials microorganisms, some of the other particulates that you cannot see, and of course algae. So that takes out a high range of the precursor products that we would have to deal with. That pre-treatment process is absolutely necessary before you apply it to a filter. If you take raw pond water or raw lake water and generally apply it to a filter, it's going to clog the filter in a very short order. So it's necessary in order to pre-treat the water to bring it to a filtration state. Then the filter that is recommended, and these are in use many treatment systems across the country, but the easiest type to understand would be something similar to the old type of pool filters. I mean, when you go to a hotel or a motel and you go to a swimming pool, the water is very clear, very clean. And that's not a natural event. That's because that filter is processing that water continuously. You put the water in through the top of a sand filter like that, and it basically removes the particulates and brings it to that state. This type of filter is known as a dual media filter, so it'll use sand and granular activated carbon. Granular activated carbon is the same product that you would find in a Brita or a pure water filter. So I had said before that what we're actually be proposing here is to build a very large Brita filter. It's capable, the process there is actually very simple. It acts as a physical strainer so that anything that made it through the first process will be strained out physically. And then the granular activated carbon has an adsorptive capacity. So it doesn't take in to the product, it takes onto the surface of the granular activated carbon. Many of things that are organic in nature, synthetic organic chemicals, natural organic matter that we find in the pond all the time, algae, and some of the byproducts, the humic and fulvic acids of decomposition, are organic in nature. And those are some of the things that cause us the bigger problems. When you have smells in the water, that is due to those decomposition of those products. Tastes, odors, both fall into this category. Algal products, not only the algae itself, but they also can release toxins and byproducts as a result of their metabolism. Those can cause taste and odors as well, but in any event, they're generally organic in nature, so that just means they have carbon in their molecular structure. And carbon has a natural affinity, so I'm explaining a pure water filter, if you will. Carbon has a natural affinity to attract carbon-based compounds. So the chemicals that you were afraid of, some of the chemicals that I would normally discuss on something like this, like the contaminants of emerging concern, or any of the other chemicals that most of you cannot name or pronounce, fit into that category being synthetic organic chemicals. The key term there is organic. It means it has carbon in their molecular structure, so they're very conducive to being removed by this process. The pharmaceuticals that you've heard about in the newspaper that are going to be of concern in the future are also generally organic in nature, and they too are conducive to this type of removal process. In between those two processes of the physical / chemical removal of some of the suspended solids by dissolved air flotation, and before it would get to filtration is ozone treatment. Ozone in the atmosphere is formed by lightning strikes, so it takes O2, which is what we breathe, and when you apply electricity to it, it forms O3, which is highly unstable, but it's a very powerful oxidant. So it's one of the more widely used disinfectants nationwide for public water systems, but it has other benefits, especially when it comes to organic matter, and also when it comes to those contaminants of emerging concern. It has the ability to be able to break those down, and nationally it is recognized as one of the best available technologies for the reduction of those types of chemicals. So we start out with the pre-treatment steps of dissolved air flotation for the physical removal. Then we have the application of ozone, which is going to act as a disinfectant, so it has the capacity to neutralize microorganisms and viruses, as well as to reduce some of the other organic compounds. Then we have the filtration, which will physically remove the compounds, and the activated carbon will also remove some of the soluble compounds in there. I'll give you an example of a soluble compound, fuel. If you put a gallon of gasoline in a conventional filter, you have a gallon of gasoline coming out the other end. So it does not remove those types of constituents. Activated carbon is highly conducive to that. Why? Because fuel is an organic compound. Then the last step in that treatment process would be disinfection on the other end, and that is intended to be able to handle any of the microorganisms that may have passed through the system and to be able to protect the system before it gets to your house. So I know a lot of people don't like chlorine at all, but of the 3 types of disinfection that are currently used and widely used today, chlorination, ozonization, and ultraviolet radiation, it is the one that leaves a residual effect in the system to protect that water on the way to your home. So that's about the briefest explanation I can give on the processes.
Mr. Heath? With the mic?
Are we filtering all of the water or the long pond water? And if what is the total gallons per day or that you have to handle?
At present, depending on the time of the year, over 60% of our water comes from Long Pond. So it's been in use since 1898, and it'll probably be in use in the year 2098. It should be around for a long time if it's properly managed and properly utilized. Annually, we pump 1.6 billion gallons of water from all of our sources a year. I think many of you may have read the article in Tuesday's Enterprise. I thought it was very well done. Believe it or not, it had nothing to do with that. It appeared on its own. But nonetheless, back then, we were processing, I want to say, less than 3 million gallons 50 years ago. Or I'm sorry, 300 million gallons. Today we process 1.6 billion gallons, of which over 1 billion gallons generally comes from Long Pond directly. For the second part of your question as to the treatment of sources, Long Pond is supplemented with the Mares Pond well, the Fresh Pond well, the Crooked Pond well, the Coonamessett well, and there are wells up on the base as part of the regional cooperative that we draw water from. So there are several wells of varying capacities. 2 of those wells are piped together and processed through the Crooked Pond treatment plant. And I won't get into a detailed description of that one, but I will say it's an air stripper, shoot water through the air, and it removes volatile organic compounds, followed by manganese green sand filtration, followed by activated carbon adsorbers. So that plant actually produces water that is better than what you buy off the shelf. So that's capable of doing 2.5 million gallons a day. So our combined capacity on a daily basis would be about 10.5 million gallons a day of filtered water if we were to treat Long Pond.
Okay. Mr. Hampson?
Hampson, Precinct 5. Ray, I'm all in favor of this, as you know. But the one thing that drives me up the wall is when I take my walks and I see people watering their lawn and it's raining outside, which is a good combination. And since we're going to have Poland Springs water, is there any anticipation that you will have to correct the charges for this so the people that abuse this privilege of using this high-quality water pay for it?
What Mr. Hampson is referring to is something that's known as an ascending block rate structure. Right now, when you get your water bill, you have a flat rate. That's your minimum charge that's built into it. And then for every 100 cubic feet that you use, there's another charge. So it's currently at $2.81. And an ascending block charge means that the more water you use, the higher the rate goes. So there are many communities that do, in fact, have that. It is encouraged. I would also argue that it's pretty clear that water has an intrinsic value, and now people are going to really understand the true value of water, if you will. And as that becomes more and more apparent, you're going to see much less of that. We're literally going to have large-scale campaigning to reduce the water use. Just for your own information, nationally it's generally at 105 gallons per capita, meaning per person, per day. Here in Falmouth, annually we have to calculate that volume, and it's generally between 65 and 70 gallons per capita per day. So we're already on the downside, but you're absolutely right. There is no excuse for wasting such a valuable resource, and I think we have to become much more efficient, especially when it becomes to that discretionary use. Because many people, we have a burgeoning summer population that goes 3 to 4 times what our normal population is. So goes the water use. All right, we pump about 2 to 3 million gallons of water a day in the wintertime. We can pump over 11 million gallons a day in the summertime. And much of that water is discretionary use, meaning it's going on the lawns outside. It is not that everybody's so clean and healthy and taking showers every day.
Okay, any further discussion on Article 25? Yeah, over here to the left. Nickerson.
Brian Nickerson, Precinct 2. Point of clarification, Mr. Moderator. You mentioned scratching the word design, and I think you meant to scratch the word construction, because I think this is only for design, isn't it? What we're voting on is just the design funds.
Well, we had a briefing last week. They told me to strike it, so who wants to tell me whether that was right or not? It's in the second line, right, after the word filtration plant?
It said design and construction. Later on, it only talks about design, so I presume you meant to say scratch construction.
No, it was the redundancy of the word design.
Oh.
To pay the costs of design and construction of a water treatment system or water filtration plant.
Right. And
design.
Right. It is for design, correct? Yes. Thank you, because you did say scratch design. I just wanted to clarify, because I know some of us here were scratching out.
Told me to tell you, so unless.
Yeah, okay.
So do we want to strike that or no?
Oops. Go ahead. Yeah. It's on the suggestion of town council that we strike it, so.
Town council had this suggestion, so Mr. Duffy, can you address the striking?
It's in there already in the first part of that. It's a redundant word. We took it out because it would cause confusion.
It says design and construction, and is any of the money going for construction? I guess that's what I'm asking the question.
No.
Okay, so the word and construction needs to be taken out. Otherwise,
I don't make motions. Anybody want to take those words out?
I move that we take the word and
All right,
construction
so there's an
out.
amendment on the floor to strike the words and construction. Any discussion on the amendment to strike the words and construction? Ms. Lichtenstein.
I have a comment afterwards.
Why would we want to restrict it in this way? Just in case some of that money actually isn't used for design, it could be applied to construction. If we take the word construction out, then we have to spend all of it on design. I mean, something may just actually, we might get it a little cheaper than we thought. I'd leave it in myself.
Okay, Mr. Duffy.
Finance director is recommending we leave the word and construction in because that tracks the statute under which we're going to borrow. We would like it to conform to the statute. with the understanding that it's going to be used for design.
Okay, Mr. Nixon.
Then I move we remove that, withdraw the amendment.
Okay, so to withdraw the amendment, we need to vote no. All those in favor of the amendment say aye. All opposed, no. The noes have it. Okay, so that's done. So now the question is back on the main motion as recommended.
Okay, I just wanted to, that was a clarification because later on it only talks about design, but that's another thing. Just about 15 years ago, when before I moved to Falmouth, I lived in Worcester along with Austin Heath, so we're familiar with filtration plants because in the city of Worcester, they put a filtration plant back in sometime in the mid-90s, and I know my wife is more particular about the quality of water than I am, and before that filtration plant went in, she drank a lot of bottled water, as she does now in Falmouth. But after the filtration plant went in, the water tasted so much better, she stopped doing that and drinking it right out of the tap. So after we do this, we'll probably have those of us who buy bottled water may see a reduction in the cost of what they spend at the grocery store. It tasted very good, and I think it's a major aspect of the water filtration plant. Thank you very much.
Okay. Question's going to come on the main motion, Article 25, as recommended. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it by the 2/3 majority, and I so declare. Article 26. Article 26 is the Board of Selectmen for the main motion.
Mr. Moderator, I move Article 26 as recommended.
As recommended. This is the laying out of 3 roads. Mr. Noonan, you held this article?
I just have a question regarding taking these roads. I believe that the state gives us money under Chapter 93. I don't know if that's the correct chapter or not. Could anybody tell me if that's the correct chapter?
Chapter 90?
90.
Yeah.
Thank you. And my question is, the amount of money that the state gives us is based on the number of miles of road that the town owns. So does the amount of money that they normally give us on an average cover the cost of upkeep of these roads? And if not, how far off is it? So we're taking on additional cost as the town. I'm just wondering what kind of additional cost are we taking on when we take on additional roads?
Mr. Jack?
Up until about 2 years ago, our annual allocation was roughly $900,000 per year under the Chapter 90 program. Most recently, within the last 2 years, it was bumped up to almost $1.25 million. The most recent correspondence we got from the state, which is this April, every April they have to announce it, they're talking $1.89 million, significant increase, but you've heard about that on TV. That's all about the road taxes and the other tax package going on in the state. So if that does not pass, that number will come down. So it was a very optimistic number. I expect that what we're going to get is going to be something higher than what we had last year, meaning somewhere around 1.3 million, maybe somewhat higher than that over the next several years. As far as what we actually need for road maintenance, you're looking at approximately $3 million a year just to be able to try to maintain. And that's talking about the town's roads. Of the 400 miles of roads in town, about 190 of them are private roads. So it's actually more than that. So it's a fairly significant amount. And we're really never going to be in a position where we can afford to maintain the roads the way we really actually need to do it. It's very, very expensive.
Mr. Noonan.
I would encourage us to vote this down then, because as you take on additional roads, it costs the town more money. We're talking about the cost of taking down wind turbines. We're talking about filtration. If we don't need to take on the added expense, let's not take it on.
Okay. Further discussion on Article 26? Hearing none, then the question will come on the main motion as recommended. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it by a majority. Article 27, the Board of Selectmen for the main motion.
Board
Okay, Article 27 as printed. This is to declare surplus to the needs of town and authorize the Board of Selectmen to lease, convey, or otherwise transfer parcel of land on Spring Bars Road. Ms. Williams, you held this one? Microphone for Ms. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Cheryl Williams, Precinct 3, and I'm also representing the T-Ticket Civic Association and the Save Little Pond Group. We've worked very closely with the CPC, and in concept, we do support this affordable housing on Spring Bars Road. That being said, we have thought very hard about possibly putting an amendment on this article. However, we'd like to move for an indefinite postponement. The reason being, there are so many outstanding issues right now, and due to those outstanding issues, i.e. the Memorandum of Understanding between the CPC and the Board of Selectmen as to the number of units, and that's where we were thinking possibly of doing an amendment to include that in the article. However, but the two bigger issues, number one, the Cape Cod Commission is in the process of doing a review of this specific project for financial feasibility, and they're also taking a look at the surrounding area for zoning, redevelopment, etc. And also there was an issue that we voted on at our last town meeting, which was to fund through the CPC $400,000 to extend the public sewer to this property, and that was voted down. Subsequent to that, the CPC has worked very diligently on the permitting of the extension of the sewer, and they're almost there, but that hasn't been completed, and also that would require a vote from town meeting. The second part of that, for the sewering of that project, certainly if the lower Little Pond, once that construction begins in 2015, that project would be able to hook into it. But until such time as all of these issues have been clearly defined, we would move indefinite postponement, and perhaps in the fall, the CPC, working with the selectmen, can come back with another article. Thank you.
Okay, so in order to indefinitely postpone, you would vote no on the article. Article 27, further discussion. Yep, Ms. Haney. Ms. Haney, then Mr. Johnson.
Patty Haney, Community Preservation Act Committee. We support the feelings of the T-Ticket Association. We would like to move forward with this, but if they're uncomfortable and need more detail, we understand that. Originally, we had written an article that was changed a little bit and made less specific. And we don't see the harm in waiting to redo this in November in a more complete and informed fashion.
Mr. Johnson.
Leonard Johnson, Precinct 5. The 300 Committee has been involved in this project for a long time, and I urge you to vote no on this proposal. It's too vague and it's premature, as has been said. It's very important in this whole process of Little Pond to have the support of the community. I won't go through all the history of the suits and everything where these people tried and succeeded in preventing a huge development in this area. And all of this purchased by the town and all the other subsequent conversations have involved a process of limiting the number of units. Otherwise, what will happen is just what they wanted to prevent happening in the first place. So this is too early to do this. There'd be more information, as Cheryl has said, so I urge you to vote no.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, this requires a 2/3 vote, and many times when we have a 2/3 vote, we have to take account. And I want to take this opportunity to draw our attention to the First Division. Mrs. Taschereau was unable to be with us tonight, but tonight would have been Charlotte's last meeting after 35 years, and teller for most of those 35 years. So Charlotte, I know you're watching at home tonight. Thank you very much for your 35 years as the teller in the First Division. That being said, I'm going to try this on a voice vote. All those in favor of Article 27 signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. It's up to the chair that the noes have it, and the article does not pass. Article 30.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote that all articles considered in this town meeting be funded as voted for a total of $123,264,318, and that the Board of Selectmen be requested to place questions on the May 2013 town election ballot as voted in Articles 24 and 25.
Okay, you've all heard the main motion to fund this town meeting for $123,264,318. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, unanimous. Mr. Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, for notification of the next annual town meeting.
Yes, Mr. Moderator, the fall town meeting is on Tuesday, April the 12th, 2013. November, I'm sorry. Been a long 3 days. November 12, 2013.
Okay, November 12th. Ms. Siegel, you have a point of order? Do you have a point of order? Or?
Well, no, a point of order implies a criticism of something you're doing, and I don't have any criticism of what you're doing. So it's not a point of order, technically.
You get with the microphone, please.
Deborah Siegel, Precinct 6. No, as I understand it, a point of order is a criticism, and I'm not criticizing. I have something that I would like to say that I think needs to be said.
Okay.
And I would like your permission to do it.
Quickly, since we don't have an article on the floor.
Quickly, what it is that I want to say this now because last night so many people left town meeting at the break that I'm surprised we had a quorum. I was very disturbed at a lot of what I saw last night and tonight, particularly around article about the wind turbine article. As you know, I have had my issues with the Board of Selectmen, but they have done a tremendous amount of learning, educating themselves, and attempting to educate town meeting. And they were criticized for showing the leadership that we asked them to demonstrate. And they were criticized because too many people do not educate themselves before they come to town meeting. And how people can get up here and consistently demonstrate suspicion and cynicism and
Okay.
wait, no,
Okay, Ms. Siegel.
wait a sec,
Yeah, Ms. Siegel, let's.
Wait a second.
Your point was
Okay.
taken by the meeting.
Okay, I just want to.
Madam Chairman.
Mr.
Moderator,
Moderator,
ladies and gentlemen,
I didn't want to leave that as a
I
negative.
move the April 2013 annual town meeting be closed.
You've all heard the main motion to close the meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the meeting's adjourned.
Hi, I'm Pat Thatcher.
And I'm Margaret Gifford. We're from Sotheby's International Realty.
You know, spring is a beautiful time in Falmouth, but one thing I've noticed is in scant supply.
Sure is. There's bikinis on the beach.
Oh, Margaret, I'm not talking about bikinis. I'm talking about the housing inventory.
It's the lowest it's ever been.
It's very low, but it's a good time for sellers.
And a great time for buyers because the interest rates are so favorable.
All in all, it's a great time for real estate in Falmouth.
Nestled in a classic New England setting, amid 200-year-old elm trees and charming colonial homes, stately sea captains' homes, and charming Cape Cod salt boxes, Shoreway Acres is a graceful blend of Cape Cod's past and present. Shoreway Acres, proud sponsor of Falmouth Community Television.
Founder Abraham Penn taught a valuable lesson that has been part of a tradition since 1919 when he said, "I'd rather make a friend than make a sale." For more than 90 years, Puritan has been making friends as a unique family-owned company right here in Cape Cod. At Puritan Cape Cod on 199 Main Street, as well as Chatham, Mashpee, and Hyannis, you'll find the latest in men's and women's clothing, as well as ski and tennis equipment, and much more. Puritan Cape Cod, 548-0116, or PuritanCapeCod.com.
Welcome to Falmouth. If you're a visitor, this is where surf and sun meet for fun. If you're a resident, this is where you'll find the businesses and the resources necessary to fill all of your needs. If you're a business person, this can be your home. Join with other men and women who work together to make this a sustainable economy year-round. Welcome to Falmouth, Cape Cod.
Green Harbor Waterfront Lodging is nestled in a woodland setting on a picturesque ocean inlet. Green Harbor offers so much for a fun-filled yet affordable family waterfront vacation. Enjoy our private boating beach with ramp and dock, free rowboats and paddle boats, oversized heated outdoor pool and kiddie pool. You'll enjoy our attractive waterfront and beachside accommodations. So visit us online at gogreenharbor.com.
Remember, WC Communications is your printing team. We are calm and cool under pressure. You can call us at 508-563-7366 or toll free at 1-800-696-7303.
Internet services provided by Cape.com Incorporated. Established in 1994, Cape.com is the only locally owned and operated internet service provider on Cape Cod. Our specialties include e-commerce applications and design, wide area networking services, and high-speed DSL internet access throughout eastern Massachusetts. Cape.com continues to lead the way with cutting-edge applications, superior networking services, and quality customer support. For more information, visit us at www.cape.com or call us at 539-9500.
Cavosa Excavating is a family-owned and operated company specializing in the installation of Title V septic systems. Cavosa Excavating is one of the largest septic system installers on Cape Cod. Whether it's upgrading your current system or installing a whole new system, Cavosa Excavating can do the job. Cavosa Excavating, 508-563-5530.
Cavosa Disposal is proud to provide trash removal services to local businesses in Falmouth. Cavosa Disposal would like to thank its customers in Falmouth. Cavosa Disposal, 563-5070.
We've earned people's trust for over 180 years. We're proud of our heritage and the enduring relationships we've built with our clients. For us, trust is more than a word. It's the only way we do business, and it's why people choose Janney.
Leah McGuire's Irish Pub, Main Street, downtown Falmouth. What an Irish pub should be. Sláinte.
Bayside Kitchen and Bath on Main Street in Falmouth, where design and installation professionals work closely with homeowners, architects, and builders. Offering a full range of cabinetry, flooring, faucets, and green alternatives, Bayside Kitchen and Bath, returning you to beautiful spaces.
Eastman's has been Falmouth's hardware store since 1913. Today, we offer a paint department, over 30,000 fasteners in stock, and a friendly staff to assist with all your hardware needs. 508-548-0407.
Wild Harbor General Store, located in historic North Falmouth Village, providing quality goods and services for 170 years. Continuing to make history with our support of FCTV's coverage of Falmouth Town Meeting.
Carpet Barn, Carpet One Home Showcase, a local family-owned business offering all your premier carpet and flooring needs. They also feature tile and vinyl floors, area rugs, window treatments, and kitchen and bathroom cabinetry, serving you at 4 convenient locations.
Bringing you the news through the years, The Enterprise. Their subscription information line is 508-299-8379, and you can visit them on the web at www.capenews.net.
Michael A. Duffany Builders, Incorporated, 508-540-3625. Falmouth Volunteers in Public Schools, 508-548-1621. The Bank of Cape Cod, at 445 Main Street in Falmouth, bankofcapecod.com. Wood Lumber Company, at 81 Locust Street, 508-548-3154. Neighborhood Falmouth, meeting seniors' needs, 564-7543, neighborhoodfalmouth.org. Green Shuttle of Cape Cod, 866-934-6476, or gogreenshuttle.com. Foley Real Estate, at 703 Main Street. The number is 548-3415. M.R. Sars & Company, Flower Garden Nursery, at Sandwich Road in Hatchville, 548-5288. Danny's Barbershop, 508-548-6013. Eight Cousins Bookstore, at 189 Main Street in Falmouth, 548-5548. Paul's Precision Automotive Repair, at 464 Main Street, 508-548-3164. David Rogers Electrician, Residential, Commercial, Industrial, 564-7507. Murray & McDonald Insurance Services, Incorporated, at 406 Jones Road in Falmouth and 550 MacArthur Boulevard in Bourne. Falmouth Fish Market, at 157 T-Ticket Highway in Falmouth. Hamilton Tree Incorporated, 508-563-7633 or www.hamtreeandland.com. Oppenheim & Nickerson LLP. Their law office is at 156 Locust Street, 508-548-8255. Davy Tree and Lawn at 996 East Falmouth Highway, 548-2662. Andy's Barbershop in the Falmouth Plaza. Arthur D. Calfee Insurance with 2 locations at 121 Conwy Road in North Falmouth and 336 Gifford Street in Falmouth. Chapman Cole & Gleason, 508-540-4172. Hanush Jewelers, now at 352 Main Street in downtown Falmouth. The number is 548-9107. Mahoney's Garden Center at Route 28 in East Falmouth. The number is 508-548-5600. 4842. Vincent Associates Real Estate at 159 Main Street in Town Hall Square. The number is 548-6500. The Cape Cod 5 at 763 Main Street. The number is 457-5252. Cape Cod Cleaning, 508-563-7622. Steve's Pizzeria and More at 374 Main Street in the center of town. 457-9454 or 457-9636.